If a man commits a crime, if he kills,
then one way or another he will be punished.
If he's caught, so.
If he's not caught, that which originates from a black deed will blossom in a foul manner.
You're relying a little too heavily on the Bible, so.
No. Whether it's the Old Testament or Shakespeare, murder will out.
who said anything about murder?
You did.
Did I?
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where each week we enter the world of a great film, we explore its themes, the history, the filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Roca. I'm a voiceover artist, actor, and host of numerous shows here in Los Angeles, California, and now a columnist.
A columnist.
That's right, a columnist.
That's awesome.
I'm going to add some more titles to my name.
Yeah. Fireman.
Sure.
Baker.
Yeah,
Candlestick
Baker.
maker.
I like Candlestick Maker. I like that. I don't know if you guys noticed, Steve's very enthusiastic to intro the show today because we are doing a film that he is super excited to do.
Yeah, I brought this up a lot.
You did. This
Yeah.
is one of his favorite films, and
It is.
not what we would traditionally find our way into this director, but I will let him take it from here. I just want you all to notice that Steve is quite happy to be doing this.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
Yes.
And of course, the reason we're doing this film, which is not something I'm excited about,
Right.
is that we lost another great actor, which is Martin Landau, a man who is a tremendous actor with a tremendous history.
Yeah.
And as we talked about, what would we do to honor him? For me, as you say, there's no question the film is Woody Allen's Crimes and Misdemeanors.
Right.
I mean, this is a movie that I've gone back to over and over again. And for me, this might be among what I would say are the three most profound and thought-provoking films we've done so far in the Cine-Files.
Wow.
Along with Amadeus
Okay.
and Apocalypse Now.
Okay.
As films that was like, there's just so much
Right, to chew on.
exactly.
Yeah.
About life and philosophy and ideas, and it's my kind of movie, you know.
Yeah. You're a thinker, Steve. I know.
I can't stop it. Sometimes my wife would like just stop it, just turn it off.
You just be Forrest Gump for like 2 days. I just
man,
would like
wish.
that for 2 days.
I wish. And so one of the things that's going to mess us up a little bit is that I teach a whole class, a whole unit on Woody Allen.
Oh,
and so
great.
I've done a lot of kind of biography of him, and so I want to give some biography of Woody Allen. This is our first Woody Allen film.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend the hour and a half to 2 hours I spend in class doing his biography.
Please
that would
don't.
be a little bit too much.
If you want to do that, go watch the documentary that's on Netflix.
It's a fantastic documentary.
2-part documentary, fantastic.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yep.
So he's born Alan Stewart Konigsberg in Brooklyn in 1935. And for me, in many ways, this guy is kind of the model of the independent filmmaker. Even though he's not necessarily independent in terms of independent from the studio system.
Right.
But the way he works, he has made 50 films,
Yeah.
essentially one film every year since he started.
Right.
There's nobody else like that. There's nobody else who just continually churns out films, and he has had complete and total artistic control of every single one of them.
Yep.
Again, nobody like that.
Right.
Yeah. He's also, a writer-director of all of his films.
And sometime actor.
And sometime actor.
And sometime lead.
Yeah.
In some of his films.
Frequently. I mean, like
Yes.
for the first dozen or so,
Yeah.
he's the lead. He started writing jokes in high school. In high school, he started, and it was this time where you could just sell jokes to the newspaper, to magazines, and that's what he was doing at like 15 years old. That's how he was making his living. He got into the NBC Writer Development Program, and he started writing for The Tonight Show, for Dick Cavett, for Ed Sullivan, and then, of course, he gets on just at the tail end of something we've talked about before, which is the greatest writing staff of all time on Sid Caesar's shows.
Yeah.
So he goes into a room that's already been established with Carl Reiner, Mel Brooks, Sam Simon, his younger brother Neil Simon, and Larry Gelbart.
Right.
Like there's no better writing room in history. And then now you had Woody Allen in the mix. Then he gets managers, which was really unusual at the time to have a manager. And they said, you know what, we think you should become a performer. And he didn't want to at first. And he said, but they said, we think you should be a stand-up comedian. He had terrible, terrible stage fright, but became what today is listed just recently as the top 4 stand-up comedian of all time in history. Yeah.
Where did you find this list?
This was on, which one was it? I don't have that note now. I think it was Comedy Central.
I would like to push back on this.
Well,
I don't know if he's a top 4, but he's certainly His stand-ups are amazing. And
They're amazing.
I remember stumbling upon them. You know, I go into a YouTube hole every once in a
Yeah,
while,
me too.
right? Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening do about things they're interested in, and some of you know that I did my first stand-up like a few weeks ago.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so for me, I've always been addicted to stand-up.
Me
And
too.
When I found Bob Newhart's stand-up, when I found Woody Allen's stand-up, and this is after I'd already appreciated them on their TV shows and in their movies, to go back and listen to their stand-ups, you can see the construction of their humor, the construction of what they're going to do later on in those TV shows and in those films in their stand-ups. And so to me, it's fascinating to listen to Woody's stand-up. It is so good. And you can tell he's incredibly awkward and socially, it pains him to be up there. You can tell.
Right, but that's
he's so
an act.
funny.
Well, I mean, that's what's interesting about
Yeah.
what he's doing is that he creates this persona,
Yeah.
and he is right at that transition moment in stand-up from joke-based, Henny
Yeah.
Youngman style, interchangeable, everybody buying and selling jokes stand-up into the character-based, story-based stand-up,
Right.
which is really what, even to this day, we still kind of are living with. And Woody Allen's one of the key people who changed that, and he creates this persona that is awkward and uber confident simultaneously.
Right.
That's the interesting thing. He kind of brags, and it's very sexual, frank about sexuality.
Yeah.
And he's just this sort of fascinating person. And what I learned about him, every little twitch and nuance and hiding himself, all that stuff, that is practiced.
Yeah.
It seems improvisational.
Right.
It is not.
Wow.
That is him locking it down. And then he became a active TV personality.
Yep.
Which, I mean, he fought a kangaroo, like he was on, he was always a regular guest on Dick Cavett on all these shows, and became just a well-known person that you would see on TV all the time.
Right.
And then studio's going to make What's New Pussycat, which we actually talked about when we talked about Casino Royale, because it's related to the producer who owned James Bond. And they decided to bring in Woody Allen as a writer to punch up the script. And he says, well, I'll punch up the script, but only if you let me play a small part in the movie. And they say, sure. Strangely enough, that part got bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you watch What's New Pussycat, which I haven't watched in a long time, it's
Right.
not one of my favorites, but he steals the show.
Wow.
And from that point forward, he becomes a writer-director and does this incredible run in the 70s of these ridiculous, over-the-top comedies, and he becomes one of the most successful comedy actor director in Hollywood.
What's the one he does where he's like doing it's an Asian film, and like What's Up Tiger Lily or whatever?
Yeah, what's up, Tiger Lily?
Yeah.
And that's where they do the dub. They
yeah.
dub all the voices. Yeah,
Right.
That's right after What's New Pussycat.
Oh, interesting.
And he
Okay.
does, Take the Money and Run and Bananas and Sleeper, which I
Right.
love.
Right.
And they are this mix of complete slapstick silliness and this weird Woody Allen intellectual streak. Like you look
Yeah.
at Love and Death, and it's really a love letter to the great Russian writers,
Right.
to Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. So you're getting slapstick and silly, ridiculous sexual farce situations put against the backdrop of a deep love of Russian literature.
Yeah.
And then the most important moment is 1977 and Annie Hall.
Right.
Because that's where, and I don't think there's any transition of a director's vision like that in film. Someone who is locked into, this is what they do. They are a comedy, silly director.
Yeah.
And then he does this beautiful, artistic, still very funny.
Sure.
But a complete departure from everything else that he's done.
Yeah.
And what follows is this unbelievable run of movies through the late 70s and early 80s, including Manhattan and Hannah and Her Sisters, that culminates, I think, with where we are now, which is Crimes and Misdemeanors.
Right. Radio Days.
Radio Days is in there.
All those are that are in there.
Yeah,
It's so
Stardust
fantastic.
Memories, Broadway
Purple
Danny Rose,
Cairo.
Purple Rosa Zelig.
Zelig. Oh,
I mean,
Steve, one day we will do Zelig.
Sure.
I would like to throw this down. There's like a marker down and say, because we have agreed to do Crimes and Misdemeanors with you, you must agree to do Zelig with me.
Done.
Because I know we'll do Annie Hall and we'll do Manhattan, but that's the one that that's my favorite Woody Allen, bar none.
let's do it.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
You don't have to convince me.
Okay.
It's particularly a fascinating movie, considering like today it's not so fascinating because we've seen a lot of things where
Right.
people are doing mockumentaries and
Sure.
using old footage and all that kind of stuff. But in 1981 or whatever years,
Yeah.
I think it was something like that.
I still love this more than any mockumentary ever made. I still love Zelig more than any mockumentary.
More than Spinal
ever made.
Tap.
More than Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
More than any of the Christopher Guest ones. More
Right.
than anything else. I just love. I just think it's so fun. It makes me laugh from beginning to end.
You know what's crazy? I might too. I might actually agree with you.
Yeah.
Because I'm less, spoiler alert to our fans out there. I really appreciate Christopher Guest, but
Yes.
I don't love Christopher Guest.
Woo, woo.
I mean, I
That's a strong statement, son.
I mean, they're great. I appreciate them.
Wow.
But I don't go like, oh, I want to go watch Best in Show again.
It's because you hate actors, Steve. Tell the truth.
Yes, that's what it is. It's that I hate actors.
Go ahead. Yes.
And the one other thing that a couple of quick more things I want to say about Woody Allen.
Yeah.
The first thing is that you recently did a top 10 show on comebacks.
Yes.
And I said if I had been on that show, I would have put Woody Allen on the list. And the reason is because he has been, I think, he's done over and over again. He'll do, after Crimes and Misdemeanors, there's a good list of 3 or 4 or 5 not so great movies. And then there's Bullets Over Broadway.
Right.
And you go, oh, he's
Which is
back.
great. Yeah.
He's back. And then the same thing happens again. 3 or 4 not so good movies.
Yeah.
And then he comes back with Match Point.
Right.
And then 3 or 4 not so good movies. And then
Midnight in Paris.
Midnight in Paris, which is his most successful movie of all time. And then again, several not so good movies. And then Blue Jasmine, which is just a brutal,
Blue Jasmine's fantastic.
unbelievable movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, every time you think he's out.
Yeah.
No, he still has something to say.
But see, I would push back against it because, like you just said at the beginning of this thing, he releases a movie every year.
Yeah.
And most of the people with comebacks were people who had disappeared for a while. Or
Yeah,
have
if you
not
define the
done-
term that way.
Yeah,
To me,
that's
it's
how we
sort of,
did
it to me, it was more like you're not making good films anymore.
Right.
And no, you still are.
Yeah, I think the only exception to that was Shyamalan that we allowed on the initial lists.
Yeah.
But it's a good, but it certainly could you can make a great case for it. Yeah.
So the couple things that we see that happen throughout his films. One is his love of magical realism.
Yes.
Which is this very specific sort of, I'm going to play with reality. We're not doing fantasy.
Yeah.
But I can play with it. We can have a character come off a movie screen. We can have a character go back in time. We can have, this idea of just, no, we could get to play in reality.
Yeah.
And the other thing is really strong female characters.
Yes.
Throughout his films. I mean, he has more female Oscar winners in his films, I think, than any director.
Wow.
Yeah, I think he has. By the way, he's personally received 24 Oscar nominations, 16 for screenplay. He's had 18 nominations for performances in his film and 7 wins.
18 for the actors in his film, not
18
him personally.
Not for him.
The actors
no.
in his film.
I don't know that he's ever gotten. He probably has.
I would be surprised if he got nominated for Best Actor.
Yeah.
Not that he shouldn't.
Yeah, maybe in Annie Hall. I don't
I
really
just think
remember.
he's stronger in every other area.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's, and this is why actors want to work for Woody Allen, is that, and the way he works is that you don't get a script, is that Woody, under basically lock and key, you get sides, and Woody would be interested in this part for you, and pretty much everyone says yes.
Yeah. Well, no, and from what I've heard, and Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. What I've heard from the legend of Woody is that Woody almost always comes in under budget, ahead of schedule. And people work for scale for him at times.
Yep.
It's not scale like what a normal actor would make, who's like got 5 and unders, but a scale for what they are making for their particular status as an actor in their time frame of their career. Like Scarlett Johansson took way less than what she could have commanded to do Match Point. And so there are a number of actors that you're right come back, and they do ensemble parts like whatever. Was it The Trouble with Harry? Was that one with Devil
Deconstructing Harry?
Deconstructing Harry. Like there were so many fantastic actors who were at the prime of their career who were willing to come and do smaller parts in that film, including Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Because he's Woody Allen.
Because it's Woody.
Yeah. Because everyone wants to work with him.
Yeah.
And he notoriously doesn't talk to his actors.
Yeah.
He's very quiet on the set. He likes long takes, and he just like sets it up, and he lets the actors go.
Yeah.
Says very, very little to him. He does fire actors, by the way.
Yes.
If he's not happy with them, he'll just let them go. He trusts his casting directors. He has amazing casting directors, obviously. And he doesn't care about fame. He doesn't care about awards. He doesn't care about money. He cares about doing the work.
Yeah.
And what they say about him is the minute he stops editing the last film, he starts writing the next film.
That's amazing.
And he's just going to keep on doing it until he drops.
Yeah, and you can see that in the documentary, the Life in Pictures, I think it's called, and it's one I've seen 4 or 5 times because, and it's a 2-parter, which is like it's almost 4 hours long, but it's worth it because you get to see his process, his mentality, how he approaches it, how he talks to the actors, because they're doing it while they're filming that Josh Brolin, Naomi Watts one that he did that wasn't that successful.
Yeah, I never even saw it.
Yeah, but like they're talking to those actors, and then so they're reflecting on their process, and then you get interviews with Diane Keaton, you get interviews with a bunch of other actors, and they all talk about how similar their process is. And then, yes, you're right, Steve, Woody fires people. Like, that's the thing. Everyone has this warm feeling about Woody. They want to work with Woody Allen, but he has fired, and he lets you go like that day. Like as soon as he knows you ain't gonna do it, he lets you go, and that's that. And you're right, he doesn't direct actors with extensive amount of time. He doesn't do a lot of takes. He says, just do this and do it this way and do it like this and blah blah.
And he casts the right people.
Yes.
He casts great actors. You know, if you can cast if you cast Martin Landau, maybe you don't have to give him a lot of direction.
That's right.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Martin Landau because that's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
So Martin Landau actually grew up a few blocks from Woody Allen.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but
I'm
he's
surprised that New York thing. Yeah.
Yeah, he's older. They didn't know each other, and he started as a cartoonist, doing caricatures, working for the New York Daily News, I think it was. And this was going to be a career. It's like from 18 on, he's doing like every single day. Cartoons are going out in national syndicated papers, little caricatures like Hirschfeld, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And he sees a great performance. This is and goes, no, that's what I want to do. Goes off to audition for the Actors Studio, auditions with 500 people, and only 2 people got in. Him and Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those two are together, and he is in the Actors Studio. His best friend's James Dean. Marilyn Monroe is there. Then he's with Eli Wallach, Sidney Pollack, John Cassavetes. I mean, this is the time of the Actors Studio, and his relationship to the Actors Studio never stopped.
Yep.
He was a teacher and a director in the Actors Studio until this year.
Yeah, and he went and started the branch in L.A.
Yep.
Yeah, he was one of the founding members, I think, from the L.A. Actors Studio, like when they transitioned from New York to L.A. as well. Yeah.
And one of his students was Jack Nicholson.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's Jack Nicholson's teacher.
Wow.
And does work on off-Broadway, Broadway, comes to Hollywood, is in a few movies. Of course, the most famous one he's in is North by Northwest.
Right.
As a bad guy.
Yeah.
And he is young and thin and kind of interesting looking and fascinating. And then his career doesn't quite go where he wants it to go. He's always working and he's always teaching. And then he gets Mission Impossible, which is really how I got to know him.
Yeah.
Because I loved Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
I love that series. And he is great. He's really the person who steals the show.
Yeah, and for you kids listening, we're talking about the TV series from the 60s. We have to sometimes reference that, not the Tom Cruise movies.
Peter Graves, Greg
right?
Morris.
Right.
That's Mission. That is Mission, and that will always, by the way, be Mission Impossible for me.
Well, of course.
There's this Tom Cruise movie series that has some good movies and some less good movies, but that is not Mission Impossible. To me, it's Martin Landau.
That's fair.
Yeah,
And Nimoy was in it for a
season
or two. Yeah,
a couple of seasons.
Yeah.
And then his big comeback is with Tucker, The Man in His Dream, the Coppola film. And he
Great
gets an Oscar
film with Jeff
nomination.
Bridges. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think that's an underrated film.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't know if it's one that we need to do on this podcast, but it's one I like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And right after that is Crimes and Misdemeanors. And Woody Allen, unlike what we said up to this point, sent him the whole script.
Ooh.
And
that's respect.
Yeah. And he said it is the best script, not the best Woody Allen script he'd ever seen, it is the best screenplay he'd ever seen.
Wow.
So he goes to New York. He has a meeting with Woody Allen. And Woody Allen doesn't really talk very much in the meeting.
Right.
So Martin Landau's kind of going, man, this is not going well. This isn't going to happen. And the only thing Woody Allen says is that the person he would really have wanted for the film if he was still alive was Edward G. Robinson. That's who he thinks should have played this part.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
My mind's just getting blown right now thinking of the scenes with Edward G. Robinson
right.
doing it. And I think it would have worked.
So Martin Landau goes away. He goes back to his hotel room, gets a call from the casting director who says, Woody wants to know how long you're in New York. Now, Landau had a flight out in like 3 hours. And he said, oh, I'm here for a couple of days. And they say, great, come on back in. We're going to have another meeting. So he goes back in, and again, Woody Allen mentions Edward G. Robinson.
Yeah.
And Martin Landau says, you are absolutely wrong. He shouldn't play that as the wrong. You are wrong about this character. And as he's saying this, he's going, this is the best script I've ever read.
Yeah.
I want this part more than anything. I am telling this amazing director to his face that he's wrong about the character. He said, you cannot play this person like a heavy.
Yeah.
You can't play this person like a bad guy. You have to be this person. You have to be sympathetic with them throughout. You have to make it understandable. Otherwise, the movie doesn't work.
Yeah.
Woody doesn't say very much, naturally. Casts him in the movie. About halfway through the production, he comes up very quietly to Martin Landau and says, you were right.
Well, and the reason I only say that Edward G. Robinson, because some of
He's great.
Yeah, some of his later films, Edward G. Robinson played more of sad sack, pathetic, vulnerable guys who were being undone by the world, undone by love, and so he could have played this part. But if he was wanting to cast Edward G. Robinson to play it as a heavy, then yes, Martin Landau is absolutely correct.
Right.
This is better that his brother is the heavy, and he is the conflicted guy with all these religious issues going on inside him. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, after this, he went on to do Ed Wood, which he won the Academy Award for.
Yes.
Which is a perfectly good movie. It's not one I go back to.
I know you're not a big fan of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I should watch it again.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can if you'd like, but here's the deal. I want to say this completely and seriously. We all don't have to like every damn film that everyone else thinks is amazing. Like, that's what makes us humans, is the ability to have certain films that we absolutely love that everyone else loves too, but also certain films we don't love that everyone else loves, and that's okay.
Well, and the other thing,
Like Goonies, goddammit. All right.
always comes back to Goonies.
It always does.
The other thing to add to that, there are limited hours in the day. And there are so many
really
movies
are.
I haven't seen.
There really are,
That
yeah.
people, on Twitter all the time now, people are saying, "Have you seen this?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, I haven't seen that."
Yeah.
And it's like now we have a professional reason. Like, we got to watch movies.
Welcome to my world, Steve.
Yeah.
2 years of this now.
It's a tough life.
It's exhausting life, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we get into the movie?
Yeah, let's do it.
We start in an award ceremony.
We're all very proud of Judah Rosenthal's philanthropic efforts, his endless hours of fundraising for the hospital, the new medical center, and now the ophthalmology wing, which until this year had just been a dream. But it's Judah Rosenthal, our friend, that we most appreciate. The husband, the father, the golf companion.
This is, I have to say, I think part of what draws me to this movie is that this world is very familiar to me.
Yeah, this is why I was looking forward to doing this episode with you, because to me, this is a world I'm outside looking through a window at. And because you're Jewish and you grew up with a certain amount of affluence, I would say, you understand the nuance of this film.
Yeah.
Right? You understand a little more intrinsically than people like me watching it who didn't grow up in the same situation.
Well, my dad is an optometrist.
Yes.
This is an ophthalmologist.
Yes.
My dad was on all these optometric boards, so we were always at dinners like this.
Mm-hmm.
My mom is still to this day a professional do-gooder on school boards and library commissions, and now she's on the Golden West chapter. She's the chairman of the Golden West chapter of the ALS charity, and she was just in Washington, D.C. raising awareness for ALS. I mean, this is so going to these events. I've been at this event, and I've heard these speeches and heard these jokes, and some of them are not so good. And we see our first moment with Martin Landau and his family, and he's very nervous. And then we go kind of immediately into this flashback, where it's now right before the award ceremony, and he'd been calm all day, and then he gets this letter.
Yeah.
And the letter is from Dolores.
Yeah. Angelica Houston.
Yeah. In quite a fascinating performance. And the letter is to Judah's wife.
Yeah.
Saying, "I've been having an affair with your husband."
Your husband and I are more than intimate friends and have been deeply in love for over 2 years now. This must be faced as there's so many ramifications and complications. Many promises were made, etc. I need an open exchange with you to clear things. For all three of us to go on, the situation has got to be confronted in some fashion.
This is a great way to start a movie.
Oh, sure.
We're in. We're 3 minutes into the movie. You're like, oh, I get what's going on here.
Well, I think that's why you cast someone like Martin Landau, right? Woody is slowly panning the camera into his face. You can tell everything's going on around him, and he's lost in another world. He's lost in another world, and his wife, I think it's Claire Bloom, the actress who's playing his wife, is explaining that he's been this way ever since he's just nervous about the speech. You see his daughter having the conversation with her. It's all like what I imagine the rich world is like, just talking about this kind of stuff and being like, oh, he was great this morning and not so much now. So it's interesting to see this, and then you see the slow pan. Then we go to that, and it seems innocent, like jump in the shower. I got to use the shower.
Right.
Then the letter arrives, and the letter wasn't like he only found it because she didn't open the letters.
Yep.
She said, I haven't had a chance to look at the letters. They've been sitting on the desk all day or the table all day. So he finds it, reads it. We hear the voiceover, then he throws it in the fire.
Yep.
And here we go onto this journey that we ourselves as viewers are going to have to decide if we want to sympathize with this guy or not. And it's fantastic.
Yeah. And then we go back to he's in the middle of his speech.
Yeah.
Talking about his charity work and talking about his past.
Now, it's funny I use the term answered prayers. You see, I'm a man of science. I've always been a skeptic, but I was raised quite religiously. And while I challenged it, even as a child, some of that feeling must have stuck with me. I remember my father telling me The eyes of God are on us always. The eyes of God. What a phrase to a young boy. I mean, what were God's eyes like? Unimaginably penetrating, intense eyes, I assumed.
And there's something that I came up when we talked about When Harry Met Sally, which is this idea of the thesis film.
Yeah.
And that When Harry Met Sally poses a question at the very beginning of the film, which is, can men and women be friends, or will the sex thing always get in the way?
Right.
And then the whole film is answering that question.
Yeah.
Woody Allen is the master of the thesis film. Like, Woody Allen does this throughout his films, not all of them,
yeah.
but there are many of them in Bullets Over Broadway and Annie Hall, where we start with an idea.
Yeah.
And here we start with the eyes of God are watching you. And what does that mean?
Yeah.
And is there a God? And of course, Judah is a person who doesn't believe in God.
Right.
He exists in a world without God in
Yes.
his mind. That is what he thinks.
He doesn't believe in, yes, but he believes in morality and good and evil and all that. So although he may not be a practicing believer, he is still, how would I say this correctly? Like, the guilt and all of that is still there within him. All the tenets of being a believer is all there without him actually being a believer.
Well, he was raised with it.
Right.
And it's deep. There's something in there.
Right.
Well, and this is the questions we're going to ask throughout this film.
Right.
Is what does that mean? What does it mean to believe? What is morality and sin and all these things
Exactly.
are going to come out through this film? Because let's remember, the name of the film, the title,
Yeah.
is Crimes and Misdemeanors.
Right.
And this is also, by the way, an obvious reference to Dostoevsky and
Yeah.
Crime and Punishment, which are also books that deal with sin and morality and God and what all those things mean.
Yeah.
And now we're going to look at it through the Woody Allen eyes.
Yeah, but the thing with Judah is tortured by this upbringing, whereas his brother, played by Jerry Orbach, is not. They were both raised in the same upbringing, but he's gone so far the other way that Orbach's statement throughout the entire film is that I live in the real world, you live in a fantasy world. You live in this world of where you think things are supposed to be a certain way, and there's justice, and there's God, and there's good and evil.
Wait.
That's
Hold
what
on.
he says to him.
Wait, you think he's saying that he lives in a fantasy world about justice and God?
No, I think he's saying he lives in a fantasy world about what's right, what's wrong, what you should do, that there's justice, all this kind of stuff. And Jerry Orbach's character, I'm sorry, I can't remember, is it Dave? Jack doesn't. And Jack says that when they're walking in the park, when later on in the film, when Judah wants to confess what happened, Jack is like, you can't, I'm not gonna let you do that. You know, you do this thing and you go along this stuff, but like, I'm living in the real world here. You're living in some other world, right?
Right. Well, what's interesting is that because what he says is you have your country club and your privilege and your big house.
Yeah.
I think it's about privilege.
It's a fantasy world in his mind.
Right. Well, it's not the real world. I don't think he's saying that you live in God's world.
No, I didn't
or
say
you
that.
live in
Yeah, I'm not saying that.
Okay. So we have this little party, and then we go, and now we're going to meet Dolores. We're going to meet Angelica Houston, who, by the way, is another one of Martin Landau's students.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this is her and her teacher, and Judah is waiting for her at her apartment.
Yes.
Why did you write that letter?
You know why we've been through it.
You want to destroy my life and my family?
I wanted to know the kind of man she's married to.
It was lying on the table all day. By sheer chance, you didn't open it. By a miracle, I got it first.
You told me over and over again you'd leave Miriam. We made plans.
I didn't.
You did. I gave up things for you, business opportunities.
Dreams.
And there were other men who wanted me.
What do you want from me?
She wants him.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
Yeah.
She believes that he made promises to her. She believes that she gave up things for him, that she had business opportunities, and she believes that he lied, or that he said that there's no passion left in his relationship with his wife, and that therefore her expectation was he was going to leave Miriam,
right?
Which he's not. And then there's this moment where he says, we're going to work it out, and he hugs her. And his face when he hugs her is so, you can see the wheels turning. It's like, I am hugging her to resolve this moment, this angry, horrible moment, but he's not hugging her because he loves her. Right?
Yes, this whole thing that happens between them, we get this presentation of what looks like an angry woman who he was having an affair with, who's upset because she believed that he had said that he was going to leave his wife. And when we see later on in the film that he makes just an offhand comment, This is what I think about it. See, the thing is, Steve, rewatching this film for this podcast was fantastic for me because there's so much in here.
Right.
And as an older man now, I haven't seen this film in like 10 years.
Yeah.
But as an older man now, having lived through the relationships that I've lived through, this is a fascinating film to watch from both sides.
Yeah.
Because initially, when I first remember watching this film, I was like, "Oh man, you got to get out of this situation." And she's crazy. She's going to do this.
Right.
And this. But as I got older, I'm like, "No, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You decided to have this affair, and so this woman, you have to reap what you sow." And he's always about like, do I deserve this? Do I really deserve? That's his entire complaint throughout the entire movie is, do I really deserve her taking stuff from me and messing up my life just because I slept with her, just because I do this or that? And it's the struggle inside of his head, and it's fascinating, man.
Well, this is, and I have the same reaction because when you meet Judah in that first speech, for me at least, I like him.
Of course.
And what we're presented with is, here is an upstanding member of the community. This is a good man.
Mm-hmm.
This is an archetypal good man. He has a family. He works in the community.
Right.
He is charitable. He is learned. He is scholarly. He is a physician.
Sure, he's successful.
He's successful. And as a younger person, and I think part of this is Angelica Houston's performance, which is brilliant.
Yes.
Because I don't like being around Angelica Houston in this movie. When she is on screen, it is uncomfortable and difficult, and I'm like, let's get the hell away from her. So I tend to dislike her. And so my tendency, just as you said, as a younger man, was to side with Martin Landau.
Mm-hmm.
When I watch it now, you see that this man is vain.
Yes.
That this man is unwilling to take responsibility for his actions.
Yep.
That this man is constantly deflecting and recreating what reality was in order for him to feel okay.
Yeah.
Justified in the actions that he's doing.
Every chance he has a chance to tell Miriam the truth, he rationalizes not doing it because he doesn't want to hurt her. But in fact, it's about not hurting himself, his status. He's losing what he has. It's all about himself. He is an insecure narcissist throughout the entire movie without being overt. He's not an overt narcissist.
Well, and I think the thing too, and this is what I think is so powerful about the film, is I think if you watch it carefully, this forces you to look at yourself.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
we are constantly saying things and doing things to just subtly get what we want.
Of course.
And like, did we mean it exactly the way we said it? Was it the exact truth? Because truth is not a black and white thing.
Right.
Truth is there's a complex set of gradations of like, are there moments where I felt like I'm not connected to my wife at all? Yes, there are. If I then said that to a woman, would that be a lie? Not necessarily.
Right.
But I also, how that woman is going to interpret what I said in terms of what I mean in the reality, this gets really, really complicated.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've established this affair, and now we cut to a hard cut into a black and white movie, which is a comedy, where they're talking about an affair, and we get to meet Woody Allen and his niece. And this is something we're going to do multiple times, these cuts into movies that are commenting directly on what's going on in the thing.
Right.
We walk out with Woody and his niece, and Woody, by the one thing we should say, we established it earlier, that Woody started as a joke writer.
Yeah.
He is, to this day, one of the great one-liners of all time.
Oh, absolutely.
And there was a couple right here, like I love, he's talking to his niece, and he says,
Don't listen to what your school teachers tell you. Don't pay attention to that. Just see what they look like, and that's how you'll know what life is really going to be like. Okay? You heard it here first. I think I see a cab. If we run quickly, we can kick the crutch from that old lady and get it.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't know exactly what that means, but that is a funny line.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
He has a bunch of them throughout the movie, yeah.
Yeah, he's great. And you instantly really like him. You meet Joanna Gleason, who you instantly do not like.
Right.
And we hear that we're going to go see a big party with the brother Lester.
Right.
And Woody's not so happy. Joanna thinks he's jealous. And again, this is something we're going to... If you watch this movie multiple times, I think the first time you're really with Woody. And then watching it more and more, there's like, oh, man, maybe Joanna has a story here too.
Well, no, I think the thing with Woody is that he is a convenient idealist. And you see this sometimes.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, he's a convenient idealist. When it fits his benefit to be idealistic, he is. When it doesn't, he isn't. And this is what is so interesting as you watch his character throughout the film. I still feel incredible sympathy for him at the end when he's sitting there with Martin Landau because of what happens with Mia Farrow, with Mia Farrow's character. But I I think he is willfully causing these things to happen in his life by being the way he is. And sometimes in life, and this is what's so funny about the film throughout, Steve, is this juxtaposition between the real world and this ideal, this supposed idealism world that is good and evil and justice and black and white. And this is what I think is Woody's very subversive message throughout the movie, is that it's your choice what kind of life you want to live, what kind of life you want to construct. Just know that people who are terrible get away with stuff all the time, and you need to be okay with this, or you need to come to terms with it if you want to exist, or you're going to end up a sad sack bitching about the world, or bitter, or alone, or frustrated. And it's incredible to watch it now as an older person.
Well, and life doesn't make sense.
Yes.
This is not going to make sense. We're not going to get to the end of this movie and be able to go, and that's what it means.
Right.
We're not getting, because life does not make sense.
Right.
You know, and so we go and meet Lester.
Yes.
Alan Alda.
He's so great.
Oh my God. First of all, I love Alan Alda.
Yes, of course.
If we were
Who
going
doesn't?
I mean, like, so MASH is among my favorite shows, a huge part of me growing up.
Absolutely.
I recently rewatched the entire series from beginning to end.
Wow.
And it was awesome. It was just great. So maybe this is why I don't have time to
Hey, I
watch
was
all these movies.
just gonna say that. This is what you do with those hours of the day. Yeah.
And what's so great, it's really the hours of night after my family goes to sleep.
Sure.
I'll watch one episode of something.
Right.
Right now I'm redoing Seinfeld.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which has also been great.
Right.
But to see Alan Alda, who has played these like sensitive, warm, super touchy-feely kind of characters, and now he plays this guy, and he is off the charts awesome in this movie.
Yeah.
And what a...
And
I've met people like this.
Yes, I was just going to say, I've
Yeah.
met this producer in real life. And this is the correlation. I think Alan Alda is to Jerry Orbach as Woody Allen is to Martin Landau in their respective storylines.
Interesting.
This is the connection I have.
Interesting.
Because Alan Alda is living in the real world of this art situation. He's a producer. Like he says to him, I got a closet full of Emmys. And of course, Woody's stuck in this idealistic place where he says, like, oh, well, his work is crap. It's like people who complain about 2.5 Men, or complain about Two Brokers, or complain about these. Like, it's legitimate, those complaints, but they're making money. Chuck Lorre's making money hand over fist. So you can complain
Well, they're doing work that people love.
Exactly. And it may not be Westworld or True Detective Season 1, but it's making money. So that's the thing. Those are the arguments. Like, Woody's a true detective.
I don't even think it's making. I mean, it is making money. That's certainly true. But it's also like they're doing the work.
Yes.
And it goes to something we talked about in the Rocky podcast.
Yeah.
Which is, how's the view from the cheap seats?
Right.
Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Exactly.
Like, and
Right.
with Woody Allen, I don't know how long he's been working on his. And believe me, as a writer who's procrastinated and spent several years finishing a screenplay, sometimes I'm Woody Allen. You know what I mean? Like, I get it.
You connect to that.
But like, how long has he been working on this Philosopher movie? How long did he work on his little movie about leukemia that won, honorable mention at some Cleveland Film Festival or something,
where everybody got on for showing up? Yeah.
I mean, like, but the asshole disrespect that Lester is showing him. I mean, pulling out the tape recorder and idea for a show,
idea for farce. A poor loser agrees to do the story of a great man's life, and in the process comes to learn deep values.
And I love, by the way, if you go and watch this movie, watch this moment, watch Woody's reaction.
Yeah.
He is so good at reacting. Like, this sort of eye roll, like, oh my God, what are you saying? Is so funny.
His eye rolls and his open eyes are my favorite. Like, his shocked eyes are always my favorite.
He's great.
Yeah.
And so what we've kind of buried the lead here is that Cliff is going to make a documentary, like a PBS American Masters sort of thing, about Lester's life. So he is being forced, because he needs the money, and it's a real gig, and it'll get people to see his work, to make a documentary about his brother-in-law who he despises.
And who digs it in by saying, look, you need work. Like, I'm only
you're
doing
not
this.
my first
You're not my
choice.
first choice, which I love. But I love my sister, and she needs to be happy. So you need to be working. You need a job. I'm going to give it to you. And Mr. Convenient Idealist takes the job.
Yep. Got to work.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. And the other person we meet at this big party is the other brother. So Joanna Gleason has one brother, Lester, who's the big Hollywood producer, and she has her other brother who we meet, which is Ben, Sam Waterston, who is a rabbi. And Ben's eyes are not good. Mm-hmm. And this is, again, we have the eyes of God, and now the rabbi is going blind. The best person, without question, the best person in this film is Ben. And he's the one who, if there is a God, God is allowing him to go blind.
Yes. But I also think Woody's also saying that religion is blind. Like, religion is blind.
Sure.
Religion blinds you to what the real world is. See, I think there's so much in here of what he's doing. And maybe I'm reading into it, but there has to be a reason that he's making the rabbi, who is the representation of religion in the film, human representation of religion in the film, going blind. There's something to that.
Well, I mean, for me, what he's saying is that bad things happen to good people. You know?
For me, he's saying religion makes you blind. Religion can blind you to what the real world is like.
Well, and this is the thing about this movie.
Yeah.
As we said at the beginning, there's a lot to chew on.
It's true.
You know, like there isn't anything, this doesn't feel like a movie where anything is accidental.
Right.
Like everything seems to be contributing to the theme and helping you debate the ideas of the film.
Absolutely.
We see Judah is driving in a car and he remembers first meeting Dolores. They met on an airplane.
Yeah.
There's a little flirtation. There's kissing in the hallway. Do you think this is Judah's first affair?
No.
I don't either.
But it's maybe his first affair in a while and as an older man.
I think it's maybe the one that went the longest.
Well, could be.
You know, maybe he had a bunch of one night stands. I don't know that he had. Like again, maybe the first time I saw it, I thought this was like a one time thing.
Yeah.
Having seen it many times now, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Judah's not that trustworthy.
Right. But she saw the ring on his finger. She willfully did it too. So that's the thing. For as much as I want to feel sympathy for Angelica Houston's character, she also got involved with a married man. So both of them made choices.
Yep.
And neither one of them can complain about what the other one is doing because they both willfully walked into this situation. At least in my opinion. I don't think either one of them are valid to complain about anything.
They do complain.
Yes, of course, through the whole movie.
Yeah. As do we all.
Well, sure.
And also, I think both of them they're both lying to themselves.
Yes,
because she is lying to herself in that he's going to leave his wife.
Right.
You know, or maybe she starts off going, "Oh, I don't care. It's just a one night thing," and then as it goes longer, she believes, even when there's evidence to the contrary, that he's going to leave his wife, and he's lying to himself that he can get away with this.
Yes.
You know, and that she's going to just fade away into the distance, and it's not going to be a problem.
Right.
You know, it's a good thing you and I don't ever lie to ourselves. I think. We're really lucky. Judah shows up at his office. Apparently, Dolores is called. He calls her, like, don't call me at the office. And she is, again, so like...
I couldn't help it. I was going out of my skin. I have to see you later.
And it's this grasping at straws, and it's so difficult to watch.
Wow. I have a completely different feeling about it. I think she's a bit deluded in terms of her saying business opportunities, but that's an excuse.
Right.
That's not real. But you and I were different in that way. Like you're not the big fan of confrontation, and me, I'm pretty much confrontation my whole life. That's just how I've survived in this world, and so. I understand where she's coming from, and I'm not uncomfortable watching her. I feel sorry for her. Like, I don't feel sorry in terms of like above her or judgment. I feel sorry for her that she is in this position because she does love him, or a version of love that she can. She seems very damaged in her idea of love is to basically blackmail him into leaving his wife and being with her by threatening his marriage, and then later on threatening his finances, saying, which I think is in this scene, the embezzling, all this kind of stuff. So I'm not uncomfortable when she's on screen. I find that this is an interesting interplay between a relationship between two characters in a relationship. It's fascinating.
Well, and it's really unresolvable because there's no
it does get resolved, but it's unresolvable.
That's a fair point. I should take that back. So now, and again, the connectedness within this storyline, who is Judah's first patient? But Ben, the rabbi.
Right.
And in the midst of giving the exam, he does the worst doctor thing you can do, which is break off and go, "Oh God, I've done a terrible," and he kind of walks away. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Which is rough to say to the guy who's going blind.
Yeah.
And then he confides in the rabbi.
I've done a foolish thing. Senseless, vain, dumb. Another woman.
And even in this scene, he is framing it so that he is not guilty.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we all do. We all do this all the time.
I try very hard not to. Although I have done it, I try very hard not to. Like, I'm so hyper aware of it. So when I see it on screen, it's tough sometimes to feel sympathy, right? Because he's doing this in a professional setting, right? He's saying...
Well, he's talking to a rabbi.
He's talking to a rabbi.
I don't think the setting matters at this point.
Well, because it's not in the rabbi's office. He's essentially turning the rabbi... he's relying on the rabbi to, in this moment, it's almost like, I guess I look at it from a Catholic place, like you can have this conversation in a confessional and it stays there, right?
Yeah,
But-
rabbis take to-go orders.
Once again, that's why I
Yeah.
meant, like when I said earlier,
Yeah.
I'm looking through a window at this world because I don't know, I'm not intrinsically aware of this world. So, but it's so fun to see their conversation because what Martin Landau says near the end of that conversation, he says, we've been having this conversation one form or another for our entire lives.
You know, it's funny. Our entire adult lives, you and I have been having this same conversation in one form or another.
Yes, I know. It's a fundamental difference in the way we view the world. You see it as harsh and empty of values and pitiless. And I couldn't go on living if I didn't feel with all my heart a moral structure with real meaning and forgiveness and some kind of higher power. Otherwise, there's no basis to know how to live. And I know you well enough to know that the spark of that notion is inside you somewhere, too.
They're talking about the existence of a loving God. Is the world filled up with the power of God, or is it not? And what does living in that world mean, you know?
So this is what I come down to because Judah is so sensitive. Judah is so conflicted all the time throughout the movie with his morality that's been kind of beaten into him since he was a child by his father who was Jewish and was he a rabbi, his father in the film?
Seems that way.
He holds a seder and he has all that.
Well, the head of the house will have a seder.
Okay,
so
seder,
my
right.
dad would run the seder.
Okay, so it seems like in this film, but whereas Jack is not conflicted in any way, shape, or form about his religion that we
Right.
see, Judah carries it around like a cross almost throughout every scene he's in because where Judah is just
So hold
always
on,
constant.
so I want to.
So don't talk to me that there is no. You're saying that there's a world where there is no God. Well, then what do you believe in good and evil like that for? What do you believe in that morality for? Where's your basis of morality?
Well,
your basis of morality was given to you by the religion that you studied because your father put that in you since you were a child. So you have no. You can claim that there is no God, but you're still living as if there is a God because of how you're negotiating through the world.
Well, I'll push back maybe on
Sure,
two things here.
sure.
So the first thing is that this is an argument that goes on to this day between religious people and atheists.
Yes.
Of like, how is it possible to have morality if you're an atheist? You know, this is something that atheists hear all the time.
Right.
You know, where can you get a sense of good and evil? Now, I, as an atheist, have a very strong sense of morality and good and evil. And the second thing I would say is that for Judah, I don't feel that he is wrestling with God until halfway through the film, until the murder. Is that up till that point, he is wrestling with guilt and wrestling with ideas of good and evil, but I don't think he believes, I think he believes that he is an atheist and that his conception of the world is that it is a place that is empty of divine power and that there is good and evil, but it is only what humans are creating.
We'll have to disagree.
Yeah.
Because I believe if you grew up in a religious household, even as you got older and then you changed to say you don't believe in God, your morality, your good and evil was built from religion. Whether you want to admit it or not.
I agree with that.
And that's
No, I
what I'm
agree.
saying. Judas
Yeah.
is built from religion.
But I don't
he
think
may believe
he's
that he doesn't believe in God. But Steve, I would say because at the beginning of the film, the voiceover is, my father told me when I was a child, all eyes are, and that is before we know anything that's happening with him. So
right before he says that though,
Yeah.
he says, now I don't believe in God.
Right.
Yeah. I am not a religious man.
Right.
But my father told me this.
Right.
Well, and maybe the way to put it, and maybe not that we have to agree, of
Yeah,
course,
of course not.
but that in a way, like having talked to alcoholics, an alcoholic, who's in recovery, what I have heard, what they have told me is when you're drinking, you're spending all your time thinking about where your next drink is.
Yes.
And when you're not drinking, you're spending a hell of a lot of your time thinking about not having a next drink.
Right.
In both circumstances, the alcohol plays a large part in your life.
Sure.
Maybe that's true of Judah.
Yes.
Is that he's rejected the religion.
Yeah.
But it's still, the rejection of that thing is defining of who he is.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot going on with his father as well, which we see, which is why when he goes and sees his house later on in the film.
But we're going to get to that.
That's all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. One more thing I want to say just about this examination
We're
scene.
jumping around. I'm sorry, Steve.
No, it's okay.
I know you like order.
That's all right.
Go ahead.
I'm letting go of some of that.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if you've noticed in some of the.
I'm respecting us.
In some of the podcasts lately, I've let it be a little more out of order because it's also about us having a good conversation.
Right.
And
eventually, I wonder if we'll get to that point where we won't even have an order. But go ahead. Yes.
There's always an order.
Proceed.
There's a thing where he is that Ben's advice is you have to tell your wife.
Yes.
That's what you have to do.
Right, that's the right thing to do.
Because it is the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
And he says,
Sometimes when there's real love and true acknowledgement of a mistake, there can be a forgiveness, too.
I know Miriam. Our values, our feelings, our place among our friends and colleagues.
But what choice do you have if the woman is going to tell her? You have to confess the wrong and hope for understanding. And maybe Miriam was responsible in some ways, too. And you have to discuss it and hope for the best. And maybe you and Miriam can never go back to the old life, but maybe there's a new one with maturity and understanding, maybe even a richer one.
Like, I love Ben. You know, this is why I love rabbi, even though I'm not religious.
Yeah.
I've met some unbelievably brilliant rabbis. Yeah. And I love, like that compassion and intelligence and thought. And of course, his response is she won't think of it as a small infidelity. It would destroy Miriam.
Which is a lie.
Well, we don't know we don't know how she's gonna react.
Right, but I think it's something he's conveniently telling himself, so he doesn't have to do it.
Right, because he was trying to protect himself.
Of course.
Yeah. And then we've seen some of Martin Landau's flashbacks of the relationship. Now we're going to see Dolores, and they're out running on a beach. And she says, "You're in such wonderful shape." And he says, "For a man my age," which is something that's going to get repeated. And that's his vanity right there.
Yeah, of course.
Vanity. And then we hear him say that his marriage isn't so good.
Yeah.
We hear him say the thing that he said he never said. Or maybe he did.
Right, but this is Dolores' memory.
Right.
So once again, this is another layer on top of all the stuff that's going on in this film. Woody is throwing to you. We all remember our relationships differently than the person who's in the relationship with us.
Well, and the thing he says is very vague. He doesn't say, "I'm leaving my wife."
No.
He says,
I'll teach you. Someday we'll have a lot of time.
what does that mean?
Exactly.
And it makes perfect sense why in her mind that means he's leaving his wife.
Absolutely.
And in his mind, that was just something he said.
Yeah. Which narcissists do.
Yeah.
They say stuff and they never follow up on the words that they've said.
We all say stuff to try to make people feel the way we want them to feel.
Sure.
We're always saying things in a certain way.
But the good ones of us take responsibility for those words. And
Agreed,
I think
100%.
there's where...
Judah shows up at her house. She's trying to present the perfect evening.
Yes.
Drinks, music, food. She's dressed up. She looks good. She wants, because she loves him and wants him to love her.
Right.
That's what she wants in this film. She just wants love.
Yeah.
She's lonely.
I guess.
What else does she want?
Well, what kind of love does she want?
Well, that's a good question.
That's the thing that I come back to is so I guess you're right, Steve, that she wants love in this, but the kind of love she wants is destructive and possibly just overwhelmingly codependent.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But we don't always want things that are good for us.
Well, of course not.
We want what we can't have, and she's built up a reality in her mind that is completely insane, and she is trying to force him into it.
Yeah.
And you can't force people to love you. This is like a basic rule. But all of us, I won't say all of us, I've tried at some points, to get someone who didn't love me to love me.
Oh, sure. I don't know anyone who hasn't.
Yeah.
It's just kind of how it works sometimes.
Yeah. Like, and there's times where you're barking way up the wrong tree.
Of course you are.
Yeah.
But that's part of life. That's part of growth.
And you demean yourself, and you ruin yourself on some level, trying to get something that's not gettable.
If that wasn't a very common human thing for all of us to go through, there wouldn't be 3/4 of the songs in the world, or 3/4 of the movies in the world.
Yeah.
Hell, 9/10 of the movies in the world are about trying to get something that it might be unattainable. So yeah.
There's this great moment where he says, "I can't do something." She says, "You won't."
It's a weekend.
I
just to
can't,
be together.
Dal. I can't.
Why not?
I can't.
He won't.
Of course I won't. Right.
And it's such a great going, because what he's trying to let her down easy. And he's trying to make it be okay because he doesn't want to be the bad guy. He doesn't want to be confronted. And then each step he's getting stronger and stronger. And this is the moment you mentioned earlier where he offers her money. And that's when she brings up the fact that he had embezzled money from, I think, the charity that he is working with.
I took nothing, not a nickel. My conscience is completely clear.
You needed money to cover your losses. I was around when it was happening.
Okay. I needed some temporary help. I mean, for Christ's sake, after a lifetime of hard work, a man doesn't sit still and watch himself go down the toilet.
Now she's kind of blackmailing him.
Right, but once again, his argument is, I'm a good man. I did all these things. Should I have to pay or or lose my money because of this? And it's like, yeah, that's how it happens. The other choice is doing what you did, which was criminal stuff, moving money around to cover your ass until you were able to come back. And yes, you paid it back with interest, but that's what she says. She's like, I don't think they'd see that the same way.
Yeah.
And I think that's
well,
the
and I would
great
say
point.
even it's not that his argument is that he's a good man. It is that it is a given that he's a good man.
Yes.
He is reasoning from the fact that obviously I'm a good man.
Yes.
Thing is, he's not.
Kind of not.
Not by the end of the film, not.
Certainly not.
But okay, you did embezzle money.
Yes.
Like you might have justified it in whatever way you wanted to.
Right.
And it's the same thing as the affair.
Yep.
I can't tell Miriam because that would destroy the life that I built.
Right.
He made bad financial investments, which meant they might have had to move into a smaller house and they wouldn't be able to buy the fancy car. And he couldn't deal with that. And so he embezzled money. Now, he did pay the money back,
Right.
but that doesn't, that's just luck because he could have lost all that money too.
Absolutely.
He stole the money.
Yes.
That's a given. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Got a little angry about
And
that.
I totally
one.
agree with you.
Yeah. Time to film. Trying to make this documentary.
Oh, dude. So fantastic. So good.
I love New York. I was born in that building right there, behind the guy, the statue there, the guy in the pedestal. I love New York. It's like thousands of straight lines, just looking for a punchline, you know? And what makes New York such a funny place is that there's so much tension and pain and misery and craziness here. And that's the first part of comedy. But see, you got to get some distance from it. You know what I mean? That the thing to remember about comedy is if it bends, it's funny. If it breaks, it's not funny. So you got to get back from the pain. You see what I mean?
If it bends, it's funny. I still don't know what that means.
I just love the ways in which they have shots of Woody just completely, unabashedly, disgustedly reacting to the things that Alan Alda is saying as he's filming him.
Yeah.
And yet no one makes a comment about it. Like Alan Alda's never upset about it. He never points it out. Mia Farrow never points. No one on the set points out him, Woody, like looking at the sky and shaking his head or looking around going, I can't believe this guy is saying these things on camera. So, which is one of the funniest parts of the whole movie.
It's hilarious.
Right?
It's hilarious. And we're with him, too.
Yeah, of course.
Like, we're totally with him. But it goes back to the point that you made earlier, which is that he's a convenient idealist.
Yes.
Because if you really felt this way, you wouldn't be making the movie.
Exactly.
Once you sign on to make the movie, you have a in my mind, you have a responsibility to do this right.
Right.
And he is not doing it right.
No.
And mocking, even at this moment, mocking your subject or visibly showing the rest of your crew that you're disrespecting this guy is not being a good filmmaker. You are not doing something right. But it is hilarious to watch.
Yes.
And then there's this other woman who's a producer or something, and Lester goes over to talk to her, and that's Mia Farrow.
Yeah.
Listen, I know I told you this before, but if you play your cards right, you could have my body.
Wouldn't you rather leave it to science?
Oh,
That's okay, I'll wait. Thank
listen? I'm
you.
offering you my heart, you're squashing it. Come on. When are you going to quit this organization? Come work for me.
Oh, you'd fire me. I'm much too opinionated.
No.
That's
Listen,
okay, I'll wait.
I like mental stimulation.
You tried shock therapy?
That's good, that's funny.
And she jokes back at him with those great Woody Allen one-liner. Everything, cut him down, cut him down, cut him down. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Cliff goes up to talk to her, and they kind of bond over what a jerk Lester is.
Yeah.
And he tells her, why are you making a movie on this guy? And she says, which is certainly true, like, he's popular.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be a show that people are going to want to watch.
Yeah.
And Woody says, well, I got someone who's way more interesting, who's this philosopher, who I adore.
Now, the unique thing that happened to the early Israelites was that they conceived a God that cares. He cares, but at the same time, he also demands that you behave morally. But here comes the paradox. What's one of the first things that God asks? That God asks Abraham to sacrifice his only son, his beloved son, to him. In other words, in spite of millennia of efforts, we have not succeeded to create a really and entirely loving image of God.
And again, we're right. This is straight up. We're going to talk about God and ideas. And one of the interesting things about this film is I don't think this is a film that's really speculating about the existence of God.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I think this is a film that is talking about how having a relationship to God affects us. And there's even in this Philosopher, he says, a loving image of God is beyond our capacity to imagine. He's talking about us creating God.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about. And this conception of God as judgmental like scary Old Testament or even New Testament, going to hell, judgmental God, versus loving, compassionate, all-embracing God. And that is throughout this film. And again, it's what is the nature of the universe that we live in? Do we live in a universe that's absent of God? And if that's so, what does that mean? Right. Do we live in a universe where God is judgmental and has his eyes on you and your sins? Yeah. Or do we live in a universe where God is forgiving and gentle and loves us? And what does that mean for our lives?
I love it. No, I'm totally into what you're saying. Yeah, exactly. I don't know what it means. Are you asking me a question?
I'm asking you. I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Ask me the question.
Well, I don't want to ask you what universe you choose to live in.
Yeah.
But in terms of your personal relationship to God.
Right.
But what I'm asking more is like, what does that mean for a person who chooses one versus the other?
Right.
What is it like to walk the world knowing that God loves you versus knowing that God is judging you?
Right.
Versus knowing there's no God.
My thing is always come to terms with whatever your idea or decision is about that. A lot of people, like Judah in the movie, are constantly conflicted about God and about whether they are okay being the way they're being, whether they're okay with the things that they're doing, whether they're okay that like they hurt somebody and never made amends. Like this is one of the things that some of the cop-outs in religion that bother me is this whole idea of like, you only have to ask forgiveness from God. You never have to atone to the person you hurt. And that drives me insane. And I think that is phenomenal bullshit. And so those are the moments where I push back against religion. So I have a relationship with God. I've never believed in the church or religion. Because it's man-made, it's flawed. And so to me, I've never been one that runs to the church for absolution or for connection to God. He created me. I don't need a middleman. If I'm his creature, I don't need a middleman. I can just talk to him straight up. Talk to the entity of God, him or her, whatever you believe, whoever's listening, whatever you believe. But I can talk to the entity of God my way. I've read the Bible. I know the passages. I know these things. I can have a separate relationship with him as I choose. And I don't need to go to church. I don't need a priest to tell me what to do. Now, can a priest guide me? Can a priest help me at times? Sure. But when I walk through the world, I try to be as good as possible to the people I care about and I love. Where I have the struggle is when people hurt me, not wanting them to suffer for the things that they've done to me.
Right.
This is where I struggle with. Whereas Judah struggles more with not wanting to take responsibility for his actions. Mine is more about I want other people to have some kind of justice for the actions that they've done towards me.
And of course, both of those are natural things.
Right.
Like I'm more like Judah.
Yes.
Like I don't have a desire for people to suffer that have hurt. I don't see the point.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's
I wish I was more like you, man.
But
I'd be happier.
I definitely feel. I can feel myself like I have to work to. It's not that I have to work to take responsibility for things. I think I'm a very responsible person.
You are.
But I do. I'm so aware of sort of things I say and what effect they might be having. This is why I'm, as you say, don't like confrontation.
Yeah.
I really don't want to hurt people. Like that's really the idea of hurting people is just terrible to me.
Yeah.
And so I would rather kind of, well, and this again, to just go to answering my own question, is that I don't believe there's a God, at least not in any conception that's presented within. I think there's all sorts of things in the universe I don't understand.
Right.
And perhaps all sorts of connections that I can't comprehend. But a God is presented by our religions that doesn't seem very rational to me. But that doesn't remove in any way the feeling of that there is order and morality and right and wrong within the universe.
Right.
And even if it's created by ourselves, and that those things are extremely important. In fact, what's so hard for me is when I see people that are so openly and irrationally immoral.
Yes.
I'm continually shocked, even though I know better, by people's behavior. Like, how could you do that? How could you treat someone like that? How could you be so hurtful? Yeah, over and over again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we see that throughout this film?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
After Cliff shows her the philosopher,
yeah,
there's this great moment, and we know that Cliff's into her.
Yeah.
From the get-go.
Yeah.
And remember, this movie is called Crimes and Misdemeanors.
Yeah.
And we've seen, we're in the world of the crime is Dolores and Judah.
Right.
And there's an affair and the consequences of their affair. And what does Woody want? He wants an affair.
Right.
That's what he wants.
Yeah.
And we see the very beginning of it. There's this moment where he says, even though we just met, I've taken an instant liking to you. And they have great charisma together. It's really, really, really great chemistry. And her response is fascinating. She says, and I to him, pointing to the philosopher.
Right.
So right from the beginning, we're like not comfortable. It's not actually, she does not give him back what he wants.
This is a red flag.
It's a huge red flag.
I had a friend tweet at me yesterday, or tweet out about a situation where he was he'd gone on a date with this person 2 or 3 times, and this person said, I don't want to go out with you anymore. It's just not there. And he goes, well, tell me why.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly. But he wanted the reason. And I used to be like this guy. I understand that.
Me too.
In your mind, you think if you have the reason, then you can somehow rationalize it to yourself. And I said to him, but the truth is, unfortunately, one of the hardest things you have to accept in life and in dating, and especially in the situation, what you're seeing with Woody Allen and Mia Farrow in this situation is like, if you're not getting the response from that person that they appreciate you, they respect you, they cherish you, get the fuck out. Right. Don't stay. And in that moment, when she says, and it's a great jump cut, Woody just cuts and goes to the next thing. She says, and I to him. And you can see him linger for a second, and then they cut, which is brilliant.
I want to take your friend's statement, which is, tell me why. I want to take it one step further, which is, tell me why. It's not emotional blackmail, but it is an attempt to manipulate them into continuing to date you. Because what it's doing is it's saying, if you can't come up with reasons, then which people don't like to say, because is she going to say, oh, it's because you smell?
Right.
She's not going to say that.
Right.
And then that's going to force her in some way to go on the next date.
Right.
Like I remember my first girlfriend in high school, she broke up with me, and I was completely wrecked and devastated, as you are when you're 19 or 18 or whatever. And I remember being on the phone with her, and I asked her, I said, don't you love me anymore? Which is so lame, right? And then she said, well, we broke up and things changed. I was like, does that mean when you said you loved me, you were lying?
Oh, wow.
And this is such a classic sort of, I'm trying to argue her into loving me. Yeah. Basically. I'm trying to manipulate her somewhere because I've trapped her in some logic trap.
Right.
That somehow that's going to result in her coming back to be my girlfriend again.
Right.
And it's like Dolores trying to force Judah to love her.
Right.
You can't force someone to love you. It doesn't work. But we're going to think we can use words and all sorts of other stuff to get people to do it, which we can't.
And Dolores using the extreme things of it.
Absolutely.
Accusing him of crimes and whatever, what have you.
Cliff's sister.
This is why I remember this movie.
This moment?
Yes, because I remember watching this when I was, when did this come out? 89? So I was probably 19 or 20, renting it from the movie, because I rented it from the video store. And I remember this scene, and I reacted exactly like Woody reacted.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most memorable scenes in any Woody Allen film, just because it's so out of place with what normally gets talked about in Woody Allen movies.
So just to explain what we're discussing, for those of you who haven't seen the film, this is a terrible spoiler alert, is that Cliff's sister has had classified ads for like dating through the classifieds.
Right.
I've been going out with this man that I met through the personal columns. He's very attractive. It's very nice. I went out with him 3 times. He was never fresh. He was always a perfect gentleman.
And then they end up back at her place one night on a date.
He asks if you ever been tied up. And I have to say, it's pretty sexy.
It is sexy.
Yeah. This is a sexy moment. Yeah. And then, and we know that something fairly bad is going to happen. And and what I should say is that she's telling her brother, Cliff, Woody Allen, this story.
As she's crying.
Right. So we know that something horrible is about to happen. And Woody, she gets tied up.
Oh, Jesus, by a guy that you didn't know? Well, now you're going to tell me that he robbed you, right?
No. He got on top of me
and what?
I can't say it. I can't say it.
What? Tell me. What's so terrible?
He sat over me and went to the bathroom.
Oh!
And this is number 2.
And then left her.
And then left her tied up.
Got his clothes and left.
With poop on top.
Yeah.
It is. And Woody's, as you say, Woody's reaction to this moment is so disgusted, which it's a disgusting story.
Hey, of course it's a disgusting
and
story.
His lack of, he's not nice to his sister. I mean,
no.
Like, the sister has experienced as horrible a possible thing as you can. Right. And he's just calling her an idiot.
He just weighs in on it.
Barbara, you idiot. This guy could have cut your throat. He could have murdered you.
I would have preferred it.
Oh, Jesus, you're such a dope. I wish I could have sympathy for this.
And then which I think is the funniest moment in the movie. We go back to Woody's house. He sits down on the bed next to Joanna Gleason and says,
A strange man defecated on my sister.
and Joanna Gleason's, the next line is great. Why?
Yeah, why?
And Woody's response is...
This is a great line.
I don't know. Is there any reason I could give you that would answer that satisfactorily?
That's the greatest word, satisfactorily. It's a great way to end that line.
And then Joanna Gleason just rolls over and says, well, I got to be up early.
Yeah. Like, no big deal.
And it's just like, oh my God, their marriage is horrible.
Yeah.
Because, and so you feel with Woody Allen why he's interested in Mia Farrow.
Yes.
Because this idea, which we had Judah sort of hint at, of the marriage isn't going well, we're seeing Woody Allen's marriage with Joanna Gleason not go well.
Right.
One more thing about the sister. Again, we're in Crimes and Misdemeanors. The sister is like Dolores. She's like, I just want someone to love.
Right.
I don't want to I think I'm going to go my whole life and have nobody love me.
She goes, you don't know what it's like to be lonely. And I've been in this for years and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's in deep pain.
She is.
As is Dolores.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're finally going to meet the person that you've talked about through this whole podcast.
Yes.
Which is Jerry Orbach.
Oh, he's so good in this movie.
He's great.
I love Jerry Orbach to pieces. The late, great Jerry Orbach.
Yeah. And he's a recast. I don't know who the original actor was, but they fired him.
Wow.
And they they put Jerry Orbach in.
Can we take who do you want to guess?
I don't know.
Keitel?
Keitel. Eric Stoltz?
Eric Stoltz. No, he wouldn't be the same age as Martin Landau.
Yeah, it's funny. I meant to do research on this to see if I could find out, but I didn't remember to.
I wonder.
Yeah, I wonder. This scene is great.
Yeah.
And it's so Jack is Judah's brother, and we know that Judah's bailed him out of some situations.
Financially, yeah.
We know that Jack sort of works on the other side of the street. Like Judah's in this sort of privileged, wealthy kind of country club world, and that Jack works at Atlantic City at clubs.
Yeah.
He knows mobsters. He's that kind of guy.
Yeah.
And Judah's asking for help.
What would you like me to do?
I don't know, but she's killing me.
Want me to have somebody talk to her?
Like what?
Straighten her out.
What do you mean, threaten her? That's all I need.
How else do you expect to keep her quiet?
I don't know. Jack, I don't know.
Why do you think Judah called Jack?
I think he's desperate with the embezzling thing. That's when for him it became serious. Like his entire world construct could be destroyed by this woman.
Well, and this is what's interesting about the scene.
Yeah.
And I've watched it because actually this is a scene I teach in class, and I've watched it. So I've watched it over and over and over.
It's a great
again.
scene.
It's all in there's two shots. One shot is them walking towards the
Yes.
and then the other it's all in one shot.
Yep.
And Woody Allen does a lot of oneers, and they're not showy. They're not Martin Scorsese and Goodfellas. They're not Touch of Evil. They're not. It's just with the cameras moving slightly, the characters are in the right place, and we play out the scene. And the more I watch the scene, I kind of think through, what did Judah call him for? And the only answer I can come to is he already, somewhere in his mind, knew he wanted her killed.
Yes.
So he might not have faced it, but deep down he knew it. And now what he's doing, in order to make him feel good, is that he's not going to bring it up.
Right.
Is that I'm going to manipulate my brother into being the one to say it so I won't feel guilty. It wasn't my idea.
Right.
And then I'm going to be coy about it and resist, even though that's really what I want.
Well, it's like what you said about we lie to ourselves all the time. This is Judah once again lying to himself that he's a better man than he actually is.
Threatening will only make it worse, Jack.
Okay, forget about it. What do you want me to say?
How the hell can I forget about it? I'm fighting for my life. This woman's going to destroy everything I've built.
That's what I'm saying, Judah. If the woman won't listen to reason, then you go on to the next step.
What, threats? Violence? What are we talking about here?
She can be gotten rid of.
And the fact that he feigns hurt or distaste or disgust at Jack for even mentioning, like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? What does it mean?
Are we actually talking about getting rid of her?
Yeah, all that.
And you could see him thinking about it and the wheels turning.
Right.
And there's this great moment where he says, what will they do?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. And it's like, oh no, you're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
You got to be pushed into it. Maybe you want someone else to convince you. And one more thing, and this is just as he's having Jack convince him, and then he finally rejects it. He says, no, I can't do that. I can't. And he says, I can't live in a world like that, or something like that. Which, again, we go back to this, what world do we live in? What is their God? Is there, all those things. And one thing I tell to all my filmmaking students, all my directing students, is wait before you say cut. So one of the most important things a director gets to do is say cut. And young directors on their first film are always, when the last line of the scene happens, they say cut right away. It's like, no, don't. Wait, count to 2, count to 3, and then say cut. And then I tell all my DPs, after the director says cut, you wait. Count 1, 2, 3, and then stop rolling the camera.
Wow.
Because frequently the last moment of the scene is not the line. There's a look, there's a turn, there's a settle, there's a breath, and actually that's the scene. And if you watch the end of this scene, you will see the last turn from Judah, and you see he's decided.
Yeah.
You see he's going, nope, maybe.
Right.
And if you had said cut early, you would not have that moment.
It's a great
and it's
point.
key to the scene.
Yeah.
Cut to a movie.
The ropes come off. I tie Sash weights to her ankles with soft catgut.
Please, that's a horrible word.
Well, get the angle on this. She disappears. 2 weeks, maybe 3. And up she pops. None of this stuff on her anymore. No marks. A suicide.
And again, it parallels what's going on in the film.
Yeah.
Except now, instead of Cliff and his niece, we have Cliff and Mia.
Right.
I will reveal a little bit of something about myself. Actually, it's something that everybody already knows.
Okay.
First of all, Mia says, how did you know that seeing movies in the middle of the day is my weakness?
Right.
I love going to see movies. And the second thing is there's this moment where he says, Cliff reaches in her bag and says, here, have another cheeseburger. This is my ultimate date. And I love, by the way, it's not have a cheeseburger, it's have another cheeseburger, implying that there have been multiple cheeseburgers. We don't even know how many cheeseburgers.
I respect their metabolism.
We have movies in the middle of the day and cheeseburgers. This is the most romantic date on any movie I can think of. Like, you want the way to my heart's like, let's go to a movie and eat cheeseburgers. Like, done.
And Milk Duds.
Milk Duds,
Which
whatever.
she brings as a dessert.
Sure, it's good she brings dessert.
Yeah, can we talk about the movies? Like, did you find out what those movies
should've.
were?
I didn't.
Oh, you
I'm
didn't?
sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I like that they, like, when I like the cut to Edward G, because he does find a way to slide Edward G. Robinson into the movie.
We go to Judah's birthday. He gets a treadmill. Again, we hear this line, you're in great shape for a meal for my age. Again, the vanity. And he gets a call from Dolores and goes to meet her at a gas station. This is a reshoot, by the way. It was originally at her apartment.
Oh, okay.
Way better in the car at the gas station. Right. It's pretty rough.
She's pushing the boundaries, though, right? Like,
she's at the house. She's right at the house. She wants to come up and see Miriam. She is, in his mind, coming to destroy his life.
Right.
That's how he sees it.
Well, in her mind, she sees it as fighting for him because she says, I'm not going to let you go without a fight.
Just calm down, okay?
You keep saying we're going away. I want to be alone with you. And when we get back, I want you to bring everything to a conclusion with Miriam.
Now,
I can't go on like this. I can't wait
Del,
forever.
Listen to me. Maybe
You don't know what it's like.
Maybe it would help if you talked to somebody. I mean, like a therapist or somebody,
Don't trick me, Judah. Christ, I'm shaking.
Again, I ask, how do you feel about Angelica at this point?
At this point, this is where I start to feel a little bit like, now, retrospect, watching it now, this is where I start to feel a little bit uncomfortable by her because she's now like threatening this man's family and safety, and she's like physically driving by the house. If you tell me a man driving by a woman's house is stalking and blah, 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 it goes both ways. And this to me is her, the fact that she's right down the road from him, she's essentially stalking him, essentially like staking out the place and what she's going to do and confront Miriam. But her calling before she does it is that kind of unstable situation that you can sometimes get into where that person just wants your attention and is doing all these extreme things to get your attention. She just wants his attention, which is why she's pushing the boundaries the way she's pushing the boundaries. And she knows he'll come down to the gas station. Well, she knows.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's like there are two separate things. One is the ethics of Judah's behavior throughout the film, which we can have huge questions about, obviously. Of course. But the other is this woman has gone around the bend.
Yes.
And we see that she has been drinking. He doesn't hang a lantern on it, but it's definitely like this is a woman who's drinking. This is a woman who's hysterical. And so What Judah should do is to tell Miriam, I did this thing. There's this crazy person. We have to deal with it.
Yes.
And that's the only correct decision to make. But she does have to be dealt with. I mean, there's no I don't mean dealt with like killed.
No.
But it's like, this is this isn't, there's no way to, this is never getting better.
Right, and I think that's what's... If you juxtapose this with Fatal Attraction, you juxtapose this with Presumed Innocent, these are two movies that deal with the same kind of situation here, right? And so, one, in both of them, they tell their wife about the affair. In this one, he doesn't, which is interesting how it leads to what it leads to. Yeah.
So, we're back at the house. Yeah. And he's sitting, there's a fire... And we begin...
It's raining. Thunder.
And we begin by hearing bits of his old conversation with Ben.
Yes.
And then, and it's done so subtly, then in the background, out of focus, in the shadows, Ben is in the room.
Yes.
And they have this conversation.
Could you really go through with it?
What choice do I have, Ben? Tell me.
Give the people that you've hurt a chance to forgive you.
Miriam won't forgive me. She'll be broken. She worships me. She'll be humiliated before our friends. This woman plans to make us stink.
Did you make promises to her?
No. Maybe I led her on more than I realized. She's so emotionally hungry.
And we know that he's talking to himself. We know that this is in his mind. And there's this moment where Ben says, he sits down, he says,
it's a human life. You don't think God sees?
God is a luxury I can't afford.
Bah. And there it is.
Yeah.
Do you believe in God or not? Because don't tell me God is a luxury if you don't believe in God, because God should never have been factored in.
Well, but this is throughout this whole movie, like even the philosopher says, is talking about how we create God.
Yes.
Is that, and this is it's a classic philosophical conundrum. Did God create us in his image, or did we create God in ours?
Right.
And that in this is that God, the way Judah's seen it, well, I can choose that there's a God or not choose that there's a God. In fact, this idea of choosing God is something we're going to get to with the Father as well.
Right.
Is that in that at this moment he is choosing to not have God. Because if there is a God who will see him and he's going to sin, then he has to tell the truth to his wife.
Right.
But if there's no God, then he can kill her.
Right.
Because nothing has any moral meaning.
Once again, convenience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and this is, the essential ideas of cognitive dissonance is that our morality is flexible in order to serve our own needs and our own vision of ourselves.
Right.
And we will turn ourselves into pretzels morally in order to maintain some idea of who we are.
Yeah.
And we all do it.
Yeah.
Hopefully not to this degree.
Sure.
And even when he says that, when he says this, God is a luxury I can't afford, he says, now you sound like your brother Jack. And this is where it's this thing you're talking about. He says, Jack lives in the real world.
Yep.
Wherever
Which
that
is what Jack had told him when they first had
Yeah.
the conversation about it. So he's repeating what Jack said, because once again, this is all convenient narratives for him to latch on to validate his decision to have her killed.
Yeah.
They're all convenient narratives. He hears these thoughts, these ideas, and this is what we do. What you've been saying throughout the whole podcast, Steve, is that we sometimes say certain things, and sometimes we manipulate ourselves.
Absolutely.
Into believing certain things. Like we'll grab certain comments, certain things, and we're like, oh, well, if that person, there must be some validity because that person is good. If that person said that, it might mean something. And so we find these things to validate the decisions we make sometimes, good or bad. It happens.
And finally, at the end, Ben says,
The law, Judah. Without the law, it's all darkness.
You sound like my father. What good is the law if it prevents me from receiving justice?
I don't know what that means exactly, except, I mean, it's a complicated line. It's got a lot in it.
Yes.
Is that, because I don't know what justice means in this context, because what he really means is, what good is the law if it doesn't protect my life as I have it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that to him is justice, because like you said earlier, he thinks he's a good man.
Because he is a good man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And therefore, my life cannot be destroyed.
But they said Caesar is a good man.
Yeah.
It's all of that, and that's what's so great about watching his devolution throughout the film to where he ends up at the end. But like this moment when he says justice, that's the moment. Like in his mind, he thinks I should be able to have sleep with this woman for 3 years, have this affair, and then be able to have it end just like a regular a relationship would end. and have no ramifications in mind, no
consequences.
consequence, anything like that, because that's what happens in regular relationships. Like things end, but because a marriage is involved, there's more at stake. And so in his mind, he thinks he's in a more advantageous position than Dolores. Like he's had to school her about Schubert. He's had to school her about Boston, probably. He's had to tell her about all these things. And remember what they said earlier like if you need the best restaurant in Paris, you call Judah. If you need to know what the best hotel or whatever, like the man is a world traveler. The man, like you said earlier, I think he has had affairs multiple times in multiple cities as he traveled as an ophthalmologist, whatever his job may be, whatever the charity may be. He's done all these things. And so he feels like, oh, this is something I should be able to get away with. I should be able to end this relationship and move on and not have to pay the price. And he constantly comes back to this idea that he's somehow the victim in the situation, which is madness.
Well, and this is what privilege means in multiple meanings.
Yes.
Which is that one thing that privilege means is that you get to go to Rome and Paris and have nice houses and do all that stuff.
Right.
But the other thing it means is that you don't have to face the consequences that other people have to face.
The lesser thans in your mind.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is, Judah would never think, because one of the things about being privileged is you don't know that you're privileged.
Right.
So his conception of himself is that he's a good man, and therefore these things shouldn't happen to him.
Right.
And he doesn't, because his own sins aren't ones that he sees.
Mm-hmm.
He through cognitive dissonance, he just doesn't see them, and so that doesn't hurt his image of himself as a good man. But if he were to see someone else be a murderer, well, they should go to jail,
right? Because
they're not a good man, but his privilege allows him to just escape.
We see it all the time.
Yeah, we do. And after this imaginary conversation with Ben, Judah goes upstairs.
Yep.
He picks up the phone.
He calls Jack and he says, "Let's do it.
Let's go ahead with that thing we're talking about." Yeah. It's interesting that we don't want to say the words.
Well, he doesn't.
Nobody does.
Right.
Yeah. We say getting rid of her.
No, his dad does in the flashback later.
Yeah.
Which is perfect.
Yeah. But like, it's interesting that you know, dealing with, my father-in-law just passed away.
Yeah.
Is that I said that my father-in-law passed away. I didn't say he died.
Right.
You know what I mean? We there's something about certain words that are powerful. If you have a dog that's really sick and really old, you put him down. You don't kill him, which is in fact what you're doing.
Right.
But we don't want to say that. Like the words have power in this way. And so we're going to avoid saying we're going to kill her, but that's what we're going to do.
Right.
Hard cut to filming this doc, more of Alan Alda's stuff.
Not funny. It's not funny, guys. No, it's not. It's not funny. You're not thinking funny. You got to think with your ear. You know what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? Look, here's the difference. It's very easy. Very easy. If it bends, it's funny. If it breaks, it's not funny.
Hot girl comes in. Please don't film this. Please don't film this.
So brilliant.
Woody keeps filming it. And we're back to our philosopher, who again lays some deep stuff on us.
Yeah.
You will notice that what we are aiming at when we fall in love is a very strange paradox. The paradox consists of the fact that when we fall in love, we are seeking to re-find all or some of the people to whom we were attached as children. On the other hand, we ask our beloved to correct all of the wrongs that these early parents or siblings inflicted upon us. So that love contains in it the contradiction, the attempt to return to the past and the attempt to undo the past.
This one hit me really hard.
Yeah,
because and I've talked about this on this podcast and my other podcasts as well. When I was going through the mental health struggles I was going through last year, one of the reasons was because of relationship stuff. And when I went to see this therapist the morning that I almost took my own life, she said to me, love is when you have to, and I'd never, for whatever reason, I'd seen this way, it never had occurred to me. She's like, when you fall in love, you regress back to being a child. You want to be taken care of the way your mother took care of you as a child. What this gentleman does in the movie at this point adds another layer to this by saying, and we want to be with people who are going to repair the damage that was done to us by the people who were supposed to love us at the beginning of our lives. So that's a lot to put on someone. If you haven't come to terms with your own shit, that's a lot to put on someone else to do that for you. And so it's so powerful, that concept. And it's something I had never even remotely considered about love, that it was going back, regressing back to being a child. So it's just great to have seen it now in retrospect at my age and having gone through what I've gone through.
Well, and you look at Judah's relationship to Dolores, he's clearly a father figure.
Yes.
And he likes having that power.
Yes.
And she chooses to be submissive.
Absolutely.
In this way, because they're doing exactly what the philosopher has said to both undo the past and repeat the past at the same time. And this contradiction is, of course, is that it can't continue that way for them. And we come out of this scene with this philosopher laying down some deep stuff.
Yeah.
And we're with Mia and Cliff, and he goes, "Hey, let's have champagne." And you see it. You see these steps in his awkward Woody Allen way of trying to seduce her. And she knows, you know, and this is the thing. She's allowing it. We don't know. We don't know. Is she attracted to him? Is she not attracted to him?
Right.
And Lester calls and wants to see her that night. And obviously Cliff is not happy about it. He has this great line.
You're not going to go to the hotel with him? That's crazy.
What's the matter with
I
you?
better
Don't
go
be
with
so-
you.
Oh, come on, don't be ridiculous.
This guy, I know this guy. He won't be able to take his hands off you. Get you in a room, you know, and he'll read you your Miranda rights and he'll tear your clothes off.
He's interested in producing something of mine.
Your first child.
Again, just classic Woody Allen, great lines.
Yeah.
And then he says, well, why, you know, to spend some time, I have this 16 millimeter print of Singing in the Rain.
Yeah.
Let's order takeout and watch it. Again, this is a perfect date for me.
Yes,
We're gonna
of course.
Yeah, like watch Singing in the Rain. And there's something so romantic that's happening.
Yeah.
And yet he's married. And in the other plot line, we know the consequences of affairs. And, you know, and so there's a very complicated thing going on.
Yeah.
And now it's time for the murder. And there's a beautiful classical piece of music playing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Schubert. It might be Schubert.
I don't know.
Considering they mentioned it so many times.
Yeah. It's beautifully filmed.
Yeah.
And we should say at this moment that Woody Allen is a huge Ingmar Bergman fan.
Yes.
And this is very much an Ingmar Bergman-esque movie. And the cinematographer of this movie is Fenn Nykvist, Ingmar Bergman's cinematographer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
And it's funny because this is not a showy movie in terms of cinematography. It is beautifully shot, but it never shows off.
Yeah.
You know, this sequence is probably the most beautifully done. And the guy delivers flowers, and we don't see the murder.
Nope.
We're back.
Which I think is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think we need to see it.
We're back at a lovely dinner party at Judah's house. Jack calls, says it's done. Martin Landau's performance is astounding in this scene.
Yeah.
His shock, his reaction, he's just physically, you can see he's just shattered. Everything in him is shattered.
Yeah.
And I think this is where this thing that you were talking about earlier, suddenly the God that he rejected is right front and center with him.
Yep.
God, those eyes that see everything, they are looking right at him right now. He tries to go back to the dinner party, and he is losing it.
Yeah.
Camera pushes in on him as everyone's talking and chatting, and he says, I've done a horrible thing. And then he comes up with some lame excuse about having to get something into the office.
Papers, yeah.
And he bugs out.
Yeah.
Heads back to her apartment. Goes in.
Insanity.
He's smart enough to wear gloves, by the way.
Yeah, true.
And then he sees the body, and those eyes are just looking at him, just dead eyes.
Yeah.
Good dead acting, Angelica.
Yes.
And he sits down and stares at her.
Yeah.
And he remembers.
I'll say it once again. The eyes of God see all. Listen to me, Judah. There is absolutely nothing that escapes his sight. He sees the righteous and he sees the wicked. And the righteous will be rewarded, but the wicked will be punished for eternity.
And he gathers up some belongings, some notes, some calendar stuff where his name might be, and he goes.
Mm-hmm.
He can't back home. He can't sleep. He's in the bathroom. Phone rings. And there's nobody there. We've gotten to some dark stuff.
Yeah.
Again, hard cut into a jazz club, and we've got Joanna Gleason and Cliff, and they're on like a double date, I guess, with Mia and Lester, Alan Alda.
Yeah.
And Lester is just flirting with her like crazy, and she's deflecting. Cliff's kind of like, I want to go home. And then when Lester says, let's stay out, Cliff's like, I'll stay out. He's horrible in this
But
scene.
he is shameless.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, your wife is sitting right there, dude.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
It may be a loveless marriage, but there's still a semblance of respect you have to have in the situation.
well, and you're so obvious.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like it's
That's
not
what I mean, the
it's-
respect,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's obvious to Lester and to
Yes,
me. It's not.
true.
This is not good in any way.
True.
In fact, honestly, Cliff gets away with a ton of stuff.
Yes.
In this film, we go back to Cliff's house, and he's just upset, and he's like, why she can't like him, and Joanna Gleason's like, no, she's totally into him.
Yeah.
No way, it's not. So he calls Mia Farrow, and Lester's over.
Red flag.
Major red flag.
Again. That he willfully ignores.
And he keeps wanting to believe,
right.
Just like Dolores wants to believe.
Yeah.
You know, like that, wanting to believe that there's this love that's going to make your life okay.
Right.
Can lead you into a lot of trouble.
Yes.
And then what's really weird is that he tells his niece what's going on, and that he's totally in love with Mia Farrow, and his marriage is falling apart. It's like, dude, she's like 14. This is fucked up. You don't reveal things about your marriage in this way. That's not cool.
Right.
Another exam with Ben. There's a flashback. In the flashback, Judah remembers Dolores saying, my mom told me the eyes are the windows of the soul.
Yeah.
And Judah says, well, they're definitely windows, but I don't know if there's a soul back there. I mean, that's... Again, we're not letting this go.
Yeah.
Every scene is reinforcing, like, what does that mean? Do we have a soul? Now, or do we have a soul? So he tells, so Ben asks him, how did it go? You know, what happened with that situation? And he said, oh, she went away. And Ben goes, oh, you got a break. You know, sometimes the best strategy is to get a little luck or whatever, something like that. But of course, that's a lie, because that's not what happened, because you killed her.
Right, exactly.
Judah meets Jack, and this is the scene you were talking about, where he's just starting to freak out.
Yep.
He tells them, and by the way, they really look like brothers.
They really
in this
do.
Scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Judah tells him he went back to the apartment, and Jack is, you can see, not pleased.
Right.
Judah drives. He imagines men praying, and he ends up at his old house. Francis Conroy opens the door.
Yeah.
Young Francis Conroy.
6 feet under.
Yeah, from 6 feet under. This scene I think is more as influential on me as like any scene I can think of. That we walk into a flashback is that he's walking through his house and he hears the sound of Seder, of Passover. And he looks through the door at his Passover.
You're afraid if you don't obey the rules, God's going to punish you?
He won't punish me, May. He punishes the wicked.
Oh, who? Like Hitler?
May, how do you say that?
6 million Jews burned to death and they got away with it.
How did they get away with it?
How? Oh, come on, Sal, open your eyes. 6 million Jews and millions of others, and they got off with nothing.
How could human beings do such a thing?
Because might makes right.
And the conversation is just brilliant and fascinating. But the moment that is remarkable is that Judah, watching his own flashback, interrupts it. And they turn to him, and his flashback talks to the adult Judah.
And if a man commits a crime, if he kills,
then one way or another he will be punished.
If he's caught so.
If he's not caught, that which originates from a black deed will blossom in a foul manner.
You were relying a little too heavily on the Bible, so.
No. Whether it's the Old Testament or Shakespeare, murder will out.
who said anything about murder?
You did.
There's something so stunning and powerful about that moment to me. That to me is the moment of the whole movie.
Yeah.
Of talking to your family in your memory and them responding. I don't know. That just gets me.
No, I love it. I think it's great. And I'm sure you, like you said earlier, you've experienced these with your dad all the time, these Seders. And
so yeah.
I was surprised. I guess I didn't remember because I hadn't seen this film a very long time. The conversation that occurs there, you know, I've always thought Jewish people are very religious and very much into their religion, and they don't question their religion like Catholics do, right, or Christians do. But this scene is very clearly Jewish people on two sides of the fence questioning their, like one defending the religion, and the other people questioning the religion. And it's always interesting to see that, because I always think it's a stauncher thing, it's a harder thing, it's more difficult to question. But seeing this is great to watch. It was so fantastic to watch this.
Yeah, you clearly don't know Jews.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So the part of the Jewish religion is something that's called the Talmud.
Yeah.
And what the Talmud is basically all the rabbis, all the big rabbis throughout history discussing the Torah and the Jewish Bible and analyzing it and arguing over it. The Jewish tradition of arguing and what does this mean is so built into the religion.
Right.
You know, that is like, because rabbi means teacher.
Right.
And the rabbinical method of teaching is that we're going to have a discussion. You know, it's not just that I'm going to from on high tell you this is what it means.
Right.
It's that we're going to discuss opinions, and maybe I'll tell you what Rabbi Eliezer thought, or this rabbi, or this rabbi. You wonder why I'm so argumentative and love to discuss and pull things apart.
Yep.
That is right in the Jewish tradition. This Seder this is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, and the conversation, and then there's this moment in the conversation where they talk about faith.
Yeah.
And
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And that the Father's faith, they say it's a gift.
And if all your faith is wrong, Saul, I mean, just what if? Huh? If.
Then I'll still have a better life than all of those that doubt.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that you prefer God to the truth?
If necessary, I will always choose God over truth.
That's a lot. That's a lot, and it relates, I think, to that philosopher who's talking about how can we imagine a loving God or a cruel God, and how do we imagine God? Because if we're talking about imagining God, we're not talking about truth.
Yeah,
we're talking about, in some ways, what Dad said, which is having God in my life, whether it's true or not, makes my life better.
Yeah.
So I choose God.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to reckon with here.
Yeah, and I think it turns on when he says, oh, nobody said murder, and then his dad says, no, you did. You did.
You did.
That's it. You did by having this flashback. You did by the murder is what instigated this flashback. So therefore, you said by not even saying it, by causing the flashback, it's the inherent understanding that you said murder.
Well, and we can hide from other people.
Yeah.
And we can even sometimes hide from ourselves.
For a while.
Well, we'll see what happens with this movie.
Right.
We cannot hide from God.
Mm-hmm.
God's eyes see all.
Right.
Who said murder? You said murder.
Right.
Even if we never said the word, even if we didn't say let's kill her, even if I refrained from that, I've still done the action.
Yeah.
You know, I can't hide from it. Again, we go into this murder he says song, which is just great.
I think this is the woman who sings "Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better." I think that's the same actress who's singing this murder song.
Murder, she says.
Yeah. Which is so great.
He decides to call his service, which is something that no longer exists.
So great.
And you watch his face just fall. The professor has killed himself.
Mm-hmm.
The philosopher.
Yeah.
It's so brutal. I mean, knowing that it's coming, but I remember the first time I saw it, you're like, what?
Yeah.
How is this possible?
But we must always remember that when we are born, we need a great deal of love in order to persuade us to stay in life. Once we get that love, it usually lasts us. But the universe is a pretty cold place. It's we who invested with our feelings. And under certain conditions, we feel that the thing isn't worth it anymore.
The universe is a pretty cold place, which it is.
Yeah.
Particularly a universe without God.
Yeah.
You know, it's easier to stay in life if the universe is filled with a loving God. And if the universe is not filled with a loving God, then we need to get a lot of love from someone else, somewhere else. And we have Cliff's sister who says, I need someone to love me. And we have Dolores who's desperate for love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we have Cliff too.
Right.
You know, Cliff's not a happy guy.
But this is why love is a dangerous thing, man.
It's powerful.
I've changed my opinions on it so much now. It's like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I'm okay with it. But I remember being younger and being desperate for it like they are in this movie. So it's interesting to watch now in retrospect, right? To see the desperation that love brings out, this idea of needing comfort, this idea of needing to have this partner. But what they're all caught up in, what you mentioned earlier, which is like, if they can get this love, then their lives will make sense. They feel saved. They feel validated, blah, blah, blah. But self-love is the greatest love you can ever pursue in life, I think. And then eventually find that relationship that will bring you the satisfaction that you need. Or that you can achieve in love. But for me, self-love now, in retrospect, is what I believe is the one that we should be pursuing from day one in our lives.
I think it's the starting point. I think
yes,
if you don't have
it's
that,
the basis.
If you don't have that, it's
Absolutely.
very hard to get the other stuff.
Yes.
And the thing I would...
But plenty of people get in relationships who have marriages with no self-love or little
sure.
self-love. Yeah.
Sure, but those things are going to be fraught.
Yeah,
absolutely. And the thing I would add is that at the heart of humans is wanting. You know,
this is true.
It is our nature to want.
Yeah.
And to believe that there is something that can fill our emptiness that comes from outside ourselves.
Right.
And there isn't.
Right.
There is love, and there can be great joy in love, and there is...
And you can be saved by love.
Yes. up to a certain point,
Right.
But it will never fill the emptiness completely because once you have it,
Yeah.
and you can enjoy it and love it, and it's wonderful for a certain period of time,
Right.
the wanting remains.
Yes.
That part of yourself, and this is why does Judah seek Dolores? It doesn't
Right.
seem like there's anything wrong with his marriage. You know, why do we seek after things?
Right.
Everyone in this film is seeking after things, and that one of the things I think that is a sign of wisdom is accepting that, I'm always going to feel this way. You know, nothing. It's never going to
Yeah.
go away completely. It might go down.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm never not going to feel this. I'm never whatever that thing. I'm never going to feel. I might have moments of feeling complete. I've had those moments where I went, everything's good right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm having. I call it a perfect moment. I'm having a perfect moment. A great conversation with a friend. A great moment with my son. A great sitting in a movie eating a cheeseburger. That would be a perfect moment. You know, but those are fleeting. And then there's going to be you're stuck in traffic and you didn't get that job and that person were they rude to me? Was it like that's going to happen and now you're going to feel that emptiness. And the desire, the belief that Dolores has that Judah's going to fill that completely leads her to her death.
Right.
And the belief that Judah has that he can maintain this perfect facade leads him to murder.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And the other one gets led to being defecated on. So it's,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
A strange man defecated on my sister. And that line is amazing.
Such a great line.
So after watching The Philosopher, we see Mia comes over. She's.
But are you sad by the philosopher's suicide?
Oh my God, yes.
Really?
Yeah, you're not?
No.
Why?
Because the man understood love and understood the universe in a way that these people cannot. He understood it on an intrinsically deep level.
But he was so unhappy that he killed himself.
No, but he wasn't unhappy. That's your assumption that he's unhappy. It's never said that he's unhappy.
It's a good point.
Yes. And having gone to the brink myself, this is why this is an interesting thing to me. I actually was happy. Like, I smiled and I haven't seen this movie in years, dude. So I didn't remember that he killed himself at all. So there was like a new moment again for me. So when I was like, that makes sense. When you can deconstruct the entire concept of life and love and feelings to its base, to almost to where you're connecting Lego pieces about it, then if you choose to remove yourself from the earth, you're like, I get it. I don't want to be here anymore. And sometimes it's not a tragedy. Sometimes it's not a negative. Sometimes it's just, this guy got it. And he, like you said, you've been saying through the whole podcast, he is deep.
Oh, yeah.
And he's hitting like really hard buttons inside you about love and about our concepts of God and our concepts of existence. And so for him, he hit that moment where it's like, in my opinion, in my mind, he hit that moment where he's like, I've done it all. I'm good to go. I'm out. Or he got some kind of sickness or he had some kind of illness, which we don't know because he's extremely old
he's an old guy.
Yeah, old guy. So he might have gotten something and just took himself out because he didn't want to experience the pain of dying that way. So there's a number of reasons, but I don't feel necessarily sad. And maybe 10 years ago I would have felt sad, but I don't feel necessarily sad because the guy he understood life in a way that a lot of us will never understand it. And so I respect that. It's like geniuses like chess masters that go insane. I feel bad they go insane. If they kill themselves, I feel better because, hey, I get it. They understood the world in a way that none of us will. They decided to take their lives in this way because they can't live in a world where no one else can match them in their intelligence or genius. They can't find communion, and communion is what we really seek in our entire lives.
It's funny. I'm so glad you said all that, and it's a fascinating interpretation of it.
Yeah.
And
you don't have to agree. I'm just
no. Yeah, there's a thing that Hoover, my partner, you've heard me talk about many times, would say, which is he talks about the cerebral curse, and what the cerebral curse is that the people that really dig into life, and the meaning of life, philosophers and they're not generally happy people.
No.
Because you don't actually want to know. You know, the ignorance, cerebral curse is the opposite of ignorance is bliss. Is you don't really want to know how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
Is that the more you think about it, the sadder you get. So that's how I've always seen it.
Yeah.
Is that he really understood it. And finally he looks at the world and goes, it's what Woody Allen says. He's like, every morning he woke up and and looked at the world and said yes. And one day he said no.
Yeah.
And Mia's very sympathetic and Cliff kisses her.
Yeah.
And she says, don't do that. And now he says, my marriage isn't going to last. And he's doing exactly what Judah did.
Yep. But more clumsily and more ham-handedly.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And Dolores was throwing herself. I would say throwing herself, but she was certainly making herself available to Judah, whereas
Mia's throwing up the red flags.
Yeah, Mia's throwing up all the walls.
Yeah. And yet, when he kisses her the second time,
Yeah.
she does kiss him back.
Right. But at that point, she said, I've got all this stuff going on. I don't want to do this. So when you willfully kiss the second time, you are willfully accepting the consequences of what you're doing.
Well, and again, I've got all these things and I'm not ready and all that stuff. That's her line of bullshit.
Possibly.
Not possibly. Well, I don't think it's because she's engaged a couple of months later.
4 months later.
I think it's 3 months later, but is it 4 months?
It's-
Either way.
yeah, it's just
Either
4
way.
months later on the
Either
thing.
way, like, because people never say, you know what, I don't find you at all attractive.
Right.
They
oh,
say,
I see what you're saying.
They
So
say,
it's not her line of bullshit. It's her way of pushing. Like I don't know if it's her line of bullshit, but it's her way of letting him down easy.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying throughout. We all do this all the
Yes,
time.
yes.
We all are trying to present ourselves in a way that doesn't hurt somebody
Sure,
else and
sure.
it makes me sound good and I'm not mean.
Right.
And that's what she's doing with him. She's like, no, it's not the right time for me.
Right.
Like I've heard so many times, I'm not even interested in any relationship right now. Like that's something I've heard people say. It's like, no, that's not true.
That's not true.
A cop shows up to talk to Judah. He's very smooth.
I love that guy,
Yeah.
by the way, that actor.
Yeah, he does great.
Yeah. He was in Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah. And now we are at the scene you're talking about. Judah
Yeah.
and Jack at the park.
Yeah.
And Judah's completely freaking out, and Jack pretty much threatens him.
Yeah. Is that what you think? He's threatening him?
Absolutely.
Do you think he'll kill him? Do you think he would kill him? It's his brother. Is this a Cain Abel situation?
I don't know if he would do it.
Right.
But he's definitely threatening him
Yes,
with doing it.
he is.
I mean, I don't. Does let me ask this way first. Does Jack care about Judah?
I think he does in as much as he himself, as he's constructed as a human being, can. That's what I would say.
I think he thinks he owes Judah.
Yes. He certainly mentions it numerous times.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
Does Judah care about Jack?
No.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I think he feels a sense of responsibility towards his brother and helped him, but I think that's about his conception of himself.
Right.
And it allows him to be powerful and allows him to be like, I helped out my brother.
Yeah. And even in the situation in the house, he says, my father had so many plans for him. My father, I don't know what happened to Jack.
Yeah.
So there's a judgment of what Jack is, even though he just used Jack to handle his situation.
Yeah.
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 There's no appreciation or acceptance.
Yeah. Judah sitting outside the apartment, just looking at the apartment, like, dude.
Enough with the guilt, man.
Yeah. Well, now we're going to have the explosion. We're having a meal with the family.
Oh, my God. It's so great.
And he wigs out.
I believe in God, Miriam. I know it. Because without God, the world is a cesspool.
You're drinking steadily and every day. You never used to drink like this. Something new.
God, it's hot in here.
Well, maybe we should go, dear.
What I should do, damn it?
Judah, will you calm down?
So I want to say something really important about going back to Woody Allen's methods.
Yeah.
Remember at the beginning of the podcast, I know you already knew this, that Woody Allen only sends sides.
Yes.
And that Martin Landau got the whole script.
Right.
Miriam, his wife, and his daughter only got sides. They only have read the scenes that they are in.
Right.
Those actors do not know that Judah has had an affair or killed someone.
Wow.
Because they only read the sides.
That's great.
Isn't that amazing?
That's great.
So when they're having this scene in the restaurant, why are you freaking out? Why are you drinking so much? They don't know.
Yes.
That to me is amazing.
You're doing the work for the actor, and
Yep.
that's great.
Yep. All they have to do is play the scene. We don't know what's happening.
Right, because the actors always struggles with how much do I let what happened in the film, let what happened in the story affect me in this moment. Like the actor is always struggling with the levels to play in those scenes like that, and so to remove that fear is a great gift to the actor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would never occur to me to do this. Yeah. But in this, that's like, man.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. Maybe that's just one of the keys.
Yeah.
There's a moment I heard about where I forget the names of the actors, but there's the Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald in Midnight in Paris.
Yeah.
And they're talking to Owen Wilson, and Owen Wilson and they're in costume.
Yeah.
And they go, why don't your costumes look period? And Owen Wilson tells him, no, because I'm a time traveler. And they didn't know because they only had their sides.
It's brilliant.
They just thought it was a period piece. They
Brilliant.
didn't know there was time travel in the movie. Isn't that amazing?
That's great.
Let's screen our documentary of Lester.
Oh my God. What great revenge, right? It's petty. It's
totally petty.
It's total petty revenge.
What the fuck is he thinking?
Yeah, no,
but it's hilarious.
It's the self-destructive impulses right there.
Yeah.
Creating a cut like that, the Mussolini cut, the donkey cut in there.
The donkey cut.
Him seducing the woman in the darkness, like all that stuff to make Lester look as terrible as possible. Which is, once again, this whole thing. And I know people like this who constantly bitch about the world, that they don't get what they deserve. And then when they take these things where they have to like sell in their mind, sell themselves a little bit, sell their souls a little bit, they sabotage the project on purpose. And I'm just like, you've made your own bed. You can lie in it now.
Yeah. Well, and this is always, it goes to that why idealists bother me at a certain point. And I'm somewhat of an idealist. Is like, no, you had a job. You were hired to do a fucking job.
Yeah.
If you didn't want to do the job, don't take the job.
Right.
But you're hired to do it, and you wasted time and money, and just because you didn't like this guy.
Don't be an idealist if you're borrowing money from your parents still. If you're living off your girlfriend's shit or your boyfriend's shit, don't come to me with your idealist bullshit. The world does not work at your fucking pace. The world works. You got to get on board or get the fuck out. That's how it works.
Right. And well, this also goes to this idea of crimes and misdemeanors.
Yeah.
This is a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
You know, it's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
I love it in the movie. I was stunned. But so after Woody talks to Mia.
Well, no, Lester fires him.
Oh, Lester fires him?
Right. Lester says,
Lester
you
fires
read your
him.
contract. I'm taking this movie from you.
I'd love to see Lester. I really wouldn't. It'd be a terrible, terrible movie of himself. And he goes to talk to Mia. Mia's leaving town.
Yeah.
And Woody proposes. Cliff proposes to her.
On the spur of the moment.
On the spur of the moment. Right. And she says, no, I'm going off to London. And now we get the prison. We're in the prison movie as the days go by.
Yeah.
The mix of comedy and just fucking heavy stuff is so fascinating within this film.
Yeah.
Now, you're correct, by the way. It is 4 months later. I'm now looking at my notes.
Okay, yeah.
And it's Ben's wedding. Ben is blind.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
It is sad. He's the only person I feel sympathy for in the whole movie.
Yeah.
I guess like fully sympathy, right? Like nothing he did warrants him going blind.
Well, because there is no order in the universe that people don't get what they deserve.
All
and
right.
yet...
All right, calm down, atheist. Calm down.
and yet Ben loves his daughter. And he's so... Like, we're not dwelling on the fact that his love is pouring out of him. And we find out Cliff is getting a divorce. Judah's there. Cliff's sister's there. All our people are coming together for our final scene. We have another one of my... They talk about the fact that Cliff and Joanna Gleason hadn't had sex in a long time. Another one of my favorite Woody Allen lines is...
Last time I was inside a woman is when I visited the Statue of Liberty.
Great line.
It's just a great line.
I was watching this at work, and when I burst out laughing, everybody looked at me. That was such a great line.
It's such a good line. And then it's the entrance.
Yeah.
And Woody turns.
Woody does a great job playing as an actor.
His reaction.
So great.
This is where... Is Woody the greatest actor in the world?
No.
No, but he can act.
Yes.
And his reaction to seeing Lester walk in with Mia Farrow is amazing and crushing.
Devastating. Crushing.
It is so painful because while we knew that she was throwing up red flags, we also knew that Lester is a jerk.
Yeah, he is.
And they're engaged.
Let's talk about that, Steve.
I don't know how to. I really don't.
His reaction is of such... It's so devastating. He's so devastated by it. It's one of the ones. It's one of the moments where you really get all the walls stripped away from Lester, and you see him fully realize in that moment as an emotional creature. And then...
Of Cliff.
I'm sorry, Cliff. Yeah, you see him fully realize in that moment, staring at Mia Farrow with Alan. I mean, of all people. And he probably secretly suspected the whole time. And then, right?
I don't know.
I would think that he secretly suspected.
I mean, certainly he had to because she was at the apartment and she,
all that stuff. But you see him, Alan Alda, say, "I sent her roses day in I sent her, and then I badgered her every day." So this was his approach, and this is an interesting conversation to have because some women don't like that, like a man who's constantly over them, tucking them, blah 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 blah. And some women like the attention and getting, and for all the intellectual nature that she was, and like what he said, we made fun of this guy. I don't know why you would choose this guy. She says, well, he's got, he's better than you think he is. He's better than you think he is. And Woody responds, he goes, no, he's got money. He's successful. And she says, give me credit. Give me a little more credit. Do I have to give you a little more credit?
Well, yeah, he's like, I did give you more credit.
Yeah.
But not anymore.
But this is what I'm saying, and this is why the destruction of the idealism in this movie versus what the real world is what's fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Because I agree to a little bit with what Woody is saying in that moment. I think she does see the security and the stability of Lester. She likes the idea that he's a wanted man. He's authorial. He's primal in that going after things. And no matter how intellectual some people are, some women are, they do respond to this primal thing in a man. And Lester has that. He's successful. He doesn't take no for an answer. He goes and gets it. It doesn't say, I don't mean all women, but certainly this woman responded to it.
And I would say it's like we're all shallow. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Just as a man might say, I'm interested on what's on the inside of a woman.
Yeah.
But he might be interested on what's on the outside too. You know, the I think to me, what happens in Woody Allen's face in the moment that they enter is it's not just that you didn't get the girl.
No.
If it was that you didn't get the girl, that would be sad. But that's not what happens to him. What happens to him is his entire conception of the universe crashes.
Yes!
Is that he thinks the universe works a certain way.
Yes.
And he thinks that this person that he had become close with, that he had built up an idealized image in his head of who this person was something, and it ends up she's something else.
Yep.
And we don't get to know exactly what that something else is.
Right.
I think your description of wanting security and I think that's very likely.
Yeah.
But we don't get to know. We don't know what her relationship with Lester is like. But we know that whatever Woody thought is not true.
Right.
And part of his conception of the universe is that Lester is a jerk.
Yes.
And while he could get success and money, all those things don't matter because Cliff is a good person and this is who he is, and that Mia should see it. But that's not true.
No, because Cliff does a lot of dirty things behind his wife's back.
Yep.
And yes, they may have a loveless marriage, but they're still technically married. So
Right.
he's doing these things. So he thinks because he creates a fantasy world with Mia Farrow in his mind of being this idealistic relationship for him, he excuses his behavior. His negative behavior.
It's the cognitive dissonance we see throughout the whole film.
Exactly. With Lester, he sees it's so overt that to him it represents everything he is against, right? And for her to choose him is what you said, the complete destruction of his universe.
Well, and I think the thing that's what makes it so brilliant within the film is that Mia's choice of Lester is not just a betrayal of Cliff and a destruction of his conception of what's going on.
Yeah.
It's a betrayal of us.
Yes.
We feel betrayed.
Yes.
When she walks in with Lester, it's like, what how can this have happened?
Right.
Like we knew she was resisting Cliff, but I know I was shocked the first time I saw it. And I'm still, every time I see it, shocked on some level.
I'm slightly less shocked only because we have that Emily Dickinson moment when they're on that double date.
Yeah.
And he finishes the poem.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, see, there's more to this fucker than you think.
Well, and there's another thing, too, which is that we have a moment between Lester and Joanna Gleason.
Yes.
Alone. And they're happy and joyful and fun. And you see them, because all we've seen of Joanna Gleason is that she is horrible.
Yeah.
And now we see her without Woody.
Right.
And she seems great.
Yeah.
And suddenly it makes me go like, oh, maybe Cliff is the problem.
Yeah. Well, or not the problem, but their relationship.
Yeah.
Right. Some people bring out the worst in you. Some
Yeah.
people just do in relationships, in whatever. We've all had it. Like some people just make you feel the worst because you just can't vibe with that person. And no matter how much you spend trying to make it work, a lot of what's left is the negative feelings because it just doesn't work. And so you are a completely different person because you carry the weight of the relationship into every conversation.
Right.
And where that free-spirited, lighthearted person that was there at the beginning is now downtrodden, beaten down by the relationship. And that's what Joanna Gleason is. So much so that she's almost completely indifferent to her Woody's sister getting defecated on. Like she could care less.
Right.
Because there's no love there. And Woody's hatred of her brothers, and not the rabbi, but certainly Lester. That's how it's manifesting itself. Their loveless marriage and their hatred against each other,
Right.
judgment of each other,
Yeah.
right? And so all of that is there in that moment. And you're right. We see Alan Alda just really happy with her, and he's happy for her, which speaks to his caring for his sister, right? That speaks to his. He's a human being. He does have feelings and love and affection. He cares for his sister. When we see more affection between Joanna Gleason and Alan Alda in that moment than we ever see between Martin Landau and Jerry Orbach.
Right. Or between Martin Landau and his wife.
Right.
Or between anyone.
Well, until the end.
Until the very end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just had a full epiphany.
Ooh. I love these moments in our shows.
And I've watched this movie countless times.
Sure.
It just occurred to me you know, there are all these parallels in the film. There's Dolores and Cliff's sister. There's Cliff and Judah. There's all these parallels we see.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me until this moment that Lester and Judah are the same. Is that Lester is a successful, wealthy man who's charitable, who has a outward-facing facade as the successful man who is, you know, he gives to charity. He's paid for Ben's wedding. Yeah. He is liked by all these people, and that the difference in that he has affairs. We know this. Yeah. And the difference with Lester is that his facade is weak, and Judah's facade is strong.
Right.
Like Judah presenting the intellectual, privileged, wealthy, charitable, good man is so much better than Lester's, but in a lot of ways they're just really similar.
Yeah.
And in fact, Lester is probably a better man than Judah because as far as we know, he hasn't killed anybody.
And he's not conflicted about who he is.
Yeah, he just is who he is.
No, he doesn't see Cliff's film and go, oh my God, I need to take a look at myself. Is that how people see me?
No.
He goes, get this shit out of here.
Yeah.
I'm going to re-edit this thing.
He knows who he is.
You're an ass.
That's a great point. Is that Lester knows who he is.
Exactly.
Well, he actually doesn't know who he is.
Well,
but he is strong in his vision of who he is.
He's happy with who he is.
He's happy with who he thinks he is.
Right. And that's what I say at the end of the day. You know, it's like what I was saying earlier. Is like if you just come to terms with who you are, like who you are, and move the fuck on. That's how it is. If you're constantly worried about how you're constructed, it's a terrible existence.
Well, for me, there's a balance. Is that if you just go, I just comfortable with who I am and I don't care, then those are the people that wander around and hit each other and hurt each other. You know, and do a lot of damage. Is that you need to be able to. I think people need a little bit of introspection.
Sure, self-analysis. That's
a
fair.
little self-analysis, but too much is paralyzing.
Sure,
and too little is narcissistic and problematic.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So, you know, it's in everything. There's balance to be found.
All right, fine.
Mia and Cliff have their last moment, which we already discussed.
The letter moment. What do you think about the letter?
First of all, it's hilarious.
Is it in a pink envelope?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, and that he plagiarized most of it from James Joyce.
Yeah, James Joyce. This one mentions of Dublin. All those mentions of Dublin was brilliant.
He can't not have a joke. And then we sit down with Judah and Cliff,
which is great.
Our two main characters of our film have finally come together, and they're in their tuxedos and sit down, and it is the movie poster.
Yes.
And Judah tells I have a great idea for a movie. Great plot.
Let's say there's this man who's very successful. He has everything.
And he tells the story. And we don't hear the whole thing because that's when we cut our way to Joanna Gleason and Alan Alda. Yeah. And we come back. And what's interesting is when we last saw Judah, he was at his lowest low point where he freaked out at the restaurant, completely falling apart. And he tells now that as we come back, he says he was at his lowest point.
And after the awful deed is done, he finds that he's plagued by deep-rooted guilt. Little sparks of his religious background, which he'd rejected, are suddenly stirred up. He hears his father's voice. He imagines that God is watching his every move. Suddenly, it's not an empty universe at all, but a just and moral one, and he's violated it.
And then he woke up and the day got a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then one morning, he awakens, and the sun is shining, and his family is around him. Mysteriously, the crisis is lifted.
The main turn in Judah's character happens off camera. We only hear about it in this story. We don't see it.
Yeah.
You know, which is a really, really interesting choice. And we find out that, you know, he tells he's not punished. He prospers. And Cliff, listening to the story, says, oh, well, then his worst beliefs are realized. And Judah says, yeah, I said it was a chilling story, didn't I? And this ending is so amazing.
Yeah.
Because Cliff is like, well, you should have him turn himself in because in the absence of a God, he has to be God himself. And Judah's like, but that's not the real world. That's like, you watch too many movies.
You watch too many movies.
Yeah.
It's a great indictment.
There's so much in this.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we had another podcast, I don't remember which one it was, where we were talking about, can you be satisfied with a movie where the bad guy doesn't get punished?
Yeah.
This is that movie.
Yep.
Nothing happens to him.
Exactly.
And even the guilt, the punishment of the God that was watching him and the feeling of his own sin.
Yeah.
It's not here.
Even the slightly better Cliff than Lester. I would say Cliff is a better human constructed in that way to a degree than Lester. is left broken and devastated by everything, right? Whereas Martin Landau's character, Judah, gets away with everything. And even has a loving moment with his wife at the end, near the end, rather, has that kiss, and then they move off. And I thought they're going to end that moment, the movie, with just panning to Cliff, who's sitting there just destroyed with the drink in his hand. But then they move into a montage or something else.
Yeah,
right.
The wedding.
Yeah, the wedding. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the voiceover.
And the voiceover from the Philosopher.
Yeah,
yeah. It's
which is what did you write down what he said?
We define ourselves by the choices we have made. We are the sum total of our choices. Human happiness does not seem to have been included in the design of creation.
Yeah, this is great. It's so subversive, this movie, man. This whole idea of religion, this whole idea of happiness, this whole idea of love. He's questioning everything. But I will say I don't know. Are we in final thoughts? I don't know. Are we?
No, we got to wait. We're at the end of the movie.
Okay,
I don't know if we're at final thoughts.
Let's go.
Finish.
No, I was just going to say, but the two people who come out of this movie completely clean are the two people who are happy to love their God. And that is Ben and Judah's dad. Both of them. When we introduce them, because he says, I will always choose God over the truth.
Yep.
That's not a negative. In his mind, God brings him joy. God brings him peace and happiness and a construct world.
For that guy.
Yeah, for that guy. That's what I'm saying. In his mind, God brings him happiness, peace, and joy, and he's able to function in the world. Ben says the same thing, and that to me is what strikes me. Is everyone else is like conflicted and dirty, but the two people who come out of this, I don't think Woody's saying you have to believe in religion, you have to believe in God.
No,
he's just showing that these two do because there's no conflict within them.
Well, I think what he's doing throughout the film is he's presenting you with difficult questions.
Yes.
He's not giving any answers here. Nope. He's not saying whether or not. I mean, certainly Ben is by far and he's blind.
Yeah,
the blind guy is the happiest person in this movie. But also, who's the other person who ends up really happy at the end of this movie? Or there are maybe three more.
Yeah.
Lester
does.
Mia Farrow, and Judah.
Right.
Judah, the worst person in the film,
right,
kisses his wife and walks off happy.
Yep.
So like it doesn't let you go. It's not a movie. Our line, like, you've watched too many movies. That's not real. Because what Judah says is, we rationalize. We find a way to go on.
Right.
And who's the one person who didn't find a way to go on? The Philosopher.
Yeah.
Like, this movie is so rife with contradictions. And this is why we have so much to chew on. This is why this has ended up being one of our longest podcasts.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Shit.
For a movie that's the 90-minute movie.
We're intelligent people. We just have to talk about things.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I love Woody Allen.
Yeah.
There's one more thing I feel that we have to bring up.
Sure.
Which is that this movie is made in 1989.
Yeah.
In 1992, Woody Allen announces that he's marrying the adopted daughter of Mia Farrow.
Okay.
So she was 22 in 1992.
Yeah.
That means that in 1989, she's 19.
Yeah.
And this is a movie about a man desperately trying to cover up his affair.
Yep.
And I don't know what his relationship with Sun-Yi was in 1989.
Right.
But my guess is there was one.
And my guess is the scenes with him and his niece are stand-ins for his scenes with him and Sun-Yi.
Yeah. I purposely chose not to bring up Woody Allen's personal life at the beginning. And I don't think we can introduce him as a filmmaker and not talk about it a little bit.
I agree with you completely.
Is that there's some troubling things in here.
Yes.
Exactly how troubling is really hard to determine. And I researched it a bit. Is that there is no question that he likes younger women.
Yes.
There's no question that he ended up marrying the adopted daughter of his longtime girlfriend.
Yeah.
Who has other children who he adopted.
Yeah.
So the sister of his children. I mean, like, there's some really fucked up stuff.
There is.
And then there's accusations that he molested young children.
Right.
And because there's several great artists who fall into this category of like, what do we do? You know, what do we do here? I love this movie.
Yeah.
And I think part of the fuel of this movie, I believe, the brilliance of writing the Judah character must come from things inside Woody Allen.
Yeah.
Just as, we have in Manhattan a story about an older man in love with a younger woman.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant film.
Yeah.
But it's very troubling. I don't know. Do you have...
It's tough for me, and I agree with you. And I think you can even throw in Cosby in this situation. And it's really tough because
Cosby's the hardest for me.
Well, we're two men discussing this, right? And of course, all these acts by these talented men have been inflicted on women, and so it's very difficult. Like would women have a easier time dismissing these two as artists if they were cinephiles, if they were massive fans of comedy? Can they dismiss them as easily as we seem to have trouble doing? Like, we can't seem to dismiss Woody and be like, fuck it, we should never talk about him again, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with Michael Jackson. Many accusations of child molestation. Do we all of a sudden now hate his music? It's very difficult. These are conundrums of the world, which Crimes and Misdemeanors is really a microcosm of that.
Yeah.
Is these men who have these unsavory parts of their personality, yet are successful in their lives doing what they're doing. And what is the true success? Is that just how the world is? And so therefore we should get off our moral high horse and not judge them.
I don't think we should ever get off our moral high horse. I think you and I look good up there.
That's true. Yeah. But the Cosby thing is the most difficult one, in my opinion, because that man made an incredible amount of time, spent a lot of time and money building up the African-American community, making them feel proud about themselves, and giving them a voice when they had no voice in entertainment for a long time. A very powerful voice.
It's the hardest one for me, because I memorized Cosby albums.
Yeah, of course. Those were the best.
I listened to them over and over again. Yeah. And there was no question in my mind that I would play Cosby for my kid.
Yeah.
And now I don't know that I ever can.
Yeah, I agree.
I
can't even watch a Cosby Show episode anymore.
It's so painful.
Yeah.
So in that one, there's a lot here, and obviously we're not going to have a whole pod. We could do a whole podcast discussing this, but so first of all, I'll tell you, I always ask because I do Woody Allen in my class. I always ask my class, what do you feel about these issues?
Yeah.
And almost all of them say we don't care.
Wow.
Including the women.
Wow.
This is always shocking to me. Now it might just be their youth and their millennials and their but they're just like, whatever. If we like the movie, we like the movie. If we don't like the movie, we don't like the movie.
But that's what I'm saying. Okay, go ahead. So I'm sorry, Steve.
Well, so that's one thing. The thing with Cosby is that, to me, what he did is a violation of everything he stood for.
Yes.
Everything that I felt about him is tainted because of what and I think there's very little question that he did some terrible stuff.
There's no question.
He hasn't been convicted of the crime yet, but it seems likely.
Yeah.
With Woody Allen, it's slightly different in that he is also he put his stuff out there.
Yes.
In Manhattan, in Deconstructing Harry.
It's there.
He has been, it's not like so the fact that those things exist in his personal life are not a contradiction.
Right.
The other thing is that we don't know about the little kids.
Right.
If it's little kids, that's like, no, you're a horrible person.
Right.
The stuff with with Sun Yi is terrible and fucked up, but not a crime in the same way as the little kids one.
I don't know, because I don't know when he started to have.
We don't know.
Yeah, because if she is 14 years old when he's taking her to theaters and taking her to movies and whatever, then this is the beginning of almost a manipulation. Like you said, we manipulate people to do little things for us and build it on. He might have been grooming her, for the lack of a better term, to be his perfect companion while he was still with Mia Farrow in this possibly loveless marriage like he has with Joanna Gleason in the movie.
Yep.
It's certainly possible. And Mia Farrow being in the movie is so it's so crazy.
Well, and when they had to go act, and I think it's Husbands and Wives.
Yes.
He acted with Mia Farrow the day she found out about Sun Yi. They're in a scene together.
Yeah.
That's rough.
That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of fucked up shit about Woody when you separate him out in a personal way.
Yeah.
But you can't discount or you can't deny his talent and his ability to
this
write
is a great filmmaker.
Amazing films that ask questions of society and our world.
Yeah. So, final thoughts.
This is a great film to revisit. And if you haven't seen it and you've listened to us this long, please go back and watch it with our words ringing in your ears and see how much you can get out of this and what your thoughts are, what your ideas are. This is a fantastic film to explore as you get older as well, because you've lived through these moments now. You're not young and exuberant. You actually feel the weight of the world at times. You've experienced desperation. You know what it's like to be broken-hearted. You know what it's like to love. You know what it's like to be desperate for something. And the film explores all of that and then asks you to go even deeper, which I love films like this. And so I can't thank Steve enough for making us do this film. And for those of you who've listened to us this entire time, you've gotten your first authentic taste of what John Roca and Steve Morris do off mic about film and what inspired us to start this podcast in the first place is our talking about a film and then going on massive tangents and exploring all this such and without a construct at times about within the film, rather without a construct at times within our conversations. And this is what we do. So this being the longest one is no surprise to me because there's so much to talk about, and this is what inspires us when we have conversations about film.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was thinking, it's like, you know what? Some movies are like an iceberg. You know, 10% on the surface and 90% underneath.
Yeah.
It's a 90-minute film. It's got murder and funny lines and a lot of great performances, and it doesn't answer any questions.
No.
It continually poses stuff and lets you deal with it.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is why I keep coming back to it. Is I keep coming back to it looking for truth, looking for an answer. And there is no answer because guess what, folks? There is no answer.
Right.
You know?
There's only your answer.
Yeah. Well, and
there's not a universal answer.
There might be some people out there who are like Ben and Judah's father who have faith, and that faith is a gift. But I think for the vast majority of us, there's always doubt.
Right.
And that doubt, like that hole, that wanting I talked about, that's that's part of the human condition.
Yep.
We are not going to know. But one thing that I think this movie says, is that to some degree we have the power to choose the universe that we live in.
Yeah.
We have the power to choose if there's order, if there's love, if there's sin, if there's morality, if there's compassion. And we have the power to some degree to create that universe with the people that are around us. You know, and so maybe if this movie helps you to be a little more compassionate, a little more sensitive, maybe that's pretty cool.
Sure.
If not, you can just enjoy Woody's one-liners.
That's right, exactly.
All right. Well, that's a lot of what we think about Crimes and Misdemeanors.
Yes.
As always, we'd love to hear what you think. You can reach us on Facebook at the Cine-Files. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, on Stitcher, on iTunes. You can leave reviews on iTunes. You can leave comments on YouTube. You can support us on our Patreon page, and we're so grateful for all of you who have supported us. And as always, you can reach me on Twitter at SR Morris. John, where can they reach you?
You guys can also reach me at The Rocha Says, ROCHA, on Twitter and Instagram. Please subscribe to the Top 10 podcast or to the Schmoes No Plus podcast channel, which has the Top 10 podcast and the Outlaw Nation podcast, which I drop on Thursdays, Top 10 on Tuesdays, and Fridays on Collider Movie Talk. And of course, now, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a columnist for the trackingboard.com. That's tracking-board.com. Go and read my columns. I'm doing every Tuesday and Thursday. I do a new column for them. And so it's been a nice... I'm just busy all the time, Steve. Or come visit me at Universal Studios if you want. Whatever you want to do.
Ask for Barb.
Yes, ask for Barb. That's right.
Or Babs. Ask for Babs.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what that reference means, you'll have to go look it up. That's it for this week. We will see you next time on the Cine-Files.